What you are about to watch is a compilation of all my daily recap and reviews that I am recording for the G1 Climax 34. Basically, every day that there is a show, I record my thoughts and analysis, and I break down everything for each event individually. I know there are some people who like longer form content, who just want to plop something on and just let it go and listen to it as they do whatever else. So I decided to put all of the previous week's recaps into one longer video with chapters and everything. Maybe this is something that appeals to you. I hope you enjoy it, and be sure to subscribe to the channel if you want more wrestling content kind of like this one. Thanks for watching. I'm pumped. Everyone else has got to be pumped too, right? The wrestlers have got to be pumped. Everyone's into it, right? We're going to come back charging, but I don't feel that's what we got. I thought we got a very okay, evening of action with nothing truly standing out. Nothing truly bad either, don't get me wrong. Just like everything just perfectly acceptable, And I know this is not the New Japan that we had in the mid 2000s, 2010s, I mean, where everything would just be crazy and people would be ranting about how great these shows were for days, and you'd have these tremendous match of the year matches. It's been a few G1s that it's been this level of output by those involved in the tournament, by the wrestlers. So I'm at a point where I'm like, well, I guess this is what this is moving on, right? What you see is what you get. The days of, 2 to 3 excellent matches on the show, making everyone lose their minds, I think they're done. I think it's finished. It's not the case anymore. And I feel like I've lowered my expectations on that level. Particularly starting this year, right? Maybe I still had that level of expectation last year, but this year I sort of toned it down. I'm like, look, all right. But I also held out hope that, with this idea that we're slapping on a new coat of paint, that we're rejuvenating, refreshing the roster, having all these new guys in, there was still part of me deep down inside where I was like, man, every night is going to deliver and over deliver, and it's going to be nuts, and people will be, throwing their toupees in the air, and those who don't have a toupee, well, they'll find something to throw in the air. I don't know why I focused on it. I don't know why I decided to say toupees. Yeah. Honestly, to be completely transparent here, I'm still enjoying myself. I don't want to give the impression that I'm coming in here bummed out. I think this is still a good tournament, but the reputation of the G1 Climax didn't build itself on good little matches. It was built on the opposite. Just on any random night, you could have just great matches that would just blow you away, that would fill up your match of the year contendership list, Well, not on one night, but throughout the tournament, I mean, you'd be able to just bring this all together at the end and say this was a tremendous tournament. And that's how people got into the G1. That's why the G1 was held in such high regard. It's not by giving fine little matches throughout the tournament that people got excited for it. Now we got excited for it again this year because of the promise of something new and different. And don't get me wrong, we're getting different this year. This doesn't feel like your grandpa's G1 on a couple of levels. Both on the level of people actually participating in the tournament, right? The actual wrestlers on one hand, and on the other hand, the overall quality of matches. Again, I'm not saying the matches are bad. You can still count on one hand the matches that I thought were ho-hum, humdrum, ho-hum and humdrum. But you can still count on them on one hand. So are we complaining while our belly's full? Maybe, but I don't know. Am I disappointed? Maybe. I don't know. I think we'll put a pin in that and we'll revisit my feelings once we get closer to the once we start reaching the end of the tournament, especially when we'll be done with block action, which is coming up. Don't get me wrong, right? Block action starts on August 15th. Today's the 3rd, August 3rd. So we are well on our way here. Let's start with the attendance for night 9, which took place at the Yamato Arena. First time there in Suita. Is this like another a different what are they? It's not exactly prefectures, right? But another place within Osaka, another a specific area of Osaka. I had never heard of it, but this is a new venue. I believe New Japan ran this earlier this year for a Stardom show. Not New Japan. Bushi Road ran this. Well, it is New Japan now. This is so confusing. Yeah, they drew under 500 people for that. Let me check the 351 people. 300, excuse me, I'm going to turn off my phone. That's suddenly going nuts. 351 people for the Stardom show that they had in just a couple of weeks ago in July 13. When it comes to last night, 1,711. Or last night, earlier today. 1,711 people joined in the Yamato Arena. From what I understand, the capacity is about 4,600. I gotta say, I know New Japan runs a bunch of venues, right? And you're not gonna run Joe Hall, for a random night 9, whatever of the G1, so it's fine. The size, the capacity of the venue, it's fine. I don't have any issues with it. It's once the show is in and you're actually watching it, when they run these venues, when New Japan runs these venues that don't necessarily allow for blackouts of certain places in the audience, in the raft, not in the rafters, in the in the seating and whatnot. If they don't allow for blackouts, then you have the full venue completely blasted in light, and you see the empty venue. It's well, not the empty venue, but you see how much more the venue could be full. How about that? And it's kind of a disappointment, doesn't it? Doesn't it kind of act like a turnoff? Like me, it sort of irks me. It gets me. I'm like, I don't want to see all these seats in the back that are completely empty. But I understand that probably from a tech standpoint, it's very difficult to do it in these types of venues. I don't know, because I'm assuming if they could, they'd do it. Normally, if your venue isn't selling out as well, you black out some areas so that you sort of hide it from the cameras, right, as much as possible. And the fuller it is, the more you turn on some lights, right? Anyway, just a little thing. It irks me a bit, but it doesn't completely, bother me into to the degree where I'm like, oh, I'm throwing everything out the window and this is terrible. What an awful show. They couldn't pack the venue. That's not what I'm trying to get at here. Last year for night 9 of the G1 Climax 33, 2,316 if you want to do a comparison night per night. Might not be a fair comparison because last year night 9, was in Tokyo at the Oda City Gym, and the main event was Will Ospreay versus Kazuchika Okada. So I don't think it's a fair 1-to-1 comparison. You know, new town, new venue, and your main event is, you know, still a quality main event, you know, on paper. Shingo versus Zack. I mean, it's not where you're not booking, you know, Jake Lee versus Evil. You know, it's like, no, this is fine. Shingo and Zack should draw, and I mean, they did. Look, I think overall, despite all my little nitpicking and quibbling, I feel like 1,711 for a first time in the, you know, in the venue. I think it's good. It's on par with what they've been doing throughout the tour, maybe even a little higher. So there's nothing. Maybe I am complaining while my belly's full. Maybe like I'm completely satiated and I'm still bitching. I don't know. It's nonsense. Maybe sometimes what I say is nonsense. But yeah, I wouldn't make it would not be a fair year-over-year comparison here. Absolutely not. As far as the results for the show itself, Jake Lee defeated Callum Newman. Great Khan defeated Evil. Tetsuya Naito defeated Gabe Kidd. Sanada defeated Shota Umino. And in the main event, we had Shingo Takagi getting one over Zack Sabre Jr. So we're going to get into it. Now, like I said, I used the word sleepy. And I don't know if this is... I have trouble... I don't want to say sleepy in the sense that I felt like the audience was on its hands. I think that new crowd, you know, new venue, you know, what can you expect, so on and so forth. Maybe the crowd wasn't as alive as other New Japan crowds are, but you can't expect every crowd to be, you know, a Corkin Hall crowd. You know what I mean? And they were alive for the main event. Like, I thought the crowd was really into it for the main event. I thought it was so I don't think that this show was essentially a crowd problem. I think it was an output issue. I think I looked at all of this and I feel like the people who put in like the little extra effort were able to get that little extra spark, got reactions from the crowd, and those who sort of coasted through got what they deserved, which was, you know, practically nothing. And at the same time, Warren Hayes sitting there and feeling completely uninspired by this night of wrestling. Because that's my main issue, is that I feel uninspired. Like I took notes. I always have my notes. Cracked open a brand new one today, by the way. Brand new, just still smells like nothing. You know people who say I love to go to bookstores and then I crack open a book just to smell the books, you know, on the pages, and I'm like, what a bunch of weirdos. You know, don't you think people who do that are kind of weird? And I know a lot of people do it, and I apologize if you do it, but I also think it's kind of weird. Because no one says, you know, I go into Lids to smell the hats. You know, I go to Foot Locker to give the shoes a smell. No one says that. Now I understand like it's different because you're holding a book and it's part of the sensory experience, but it's weird. Don't go smelling books. Don't go smelling anything that isn't yours. Buy it first, then be weird with it. Then do whatever you want. Buy it, bring it home, and get weird. Get as weird as you want with your book. Get as weird as you want with your shoes or whatever. You know, at that point, I don't care anymore. So what I was saying is that this night left me completely uninspired, and I thought it was like I was saying, I took my notes. I'm ready. I've got the gist of things, but I don't feel inspired because I felt the work was uninspiring. So I don't feel, conversely, I gotta admit, I'm kind of struggling to be like, well, how are we gonna pull this off here today? Because everything was a lot of stuff. That's what I should say. It was very mid. Jake Lee versus defeated Callum Newman. I mean, it's exactly what you think it is. Callum Newman's is not in a position to be tearing the house down, and then you got Jake Lee, who, just gonna leave it at that. Jake Lee got the win. I gave it 3 stars. I kind of felt like 2 3/4. I don't know. Like it was. Was the work solid? Yes. Was it some of this? Was it? Did Jake Lee stick out the place? No. Did Callum Newman work hard? Like their final stretch was really fun. There was a really nice near fall by Newman. I think it's as good as it's going to get for an opener. It's fine, 2 3/4, 3. I don't know. Jake Lee got the win. He's at 4 points. Newman as well stays at 4. Great O'Khan defeated Evil. Now this one had a little heat to it. I thought there were moments here for the Great O'Khan comeback spots. They were very effective. They did what they had to do. And, it spills into the audience. And Evil is in control. He's using House of Torture tactics. He's got Dick Togo hanging around doing shenanigans. And, at some point, Great O'Khan does a double wrist lock on Evil. And he's starting to take the tape off of Evil's elbow. I'm like, okay, all right, this is good. And then he transitions into an arm breaker, and I'm like, okay, we got something here. And then Dick Togo pulls the ref out to avoid, I believe, to avoid Evil submitting. And then nonsense follows. Great O'Khan does a plancha onto Dick Togo on the floor. The turnbuckle is exposed, of course. Great O'Khan is whipped into it, but he fights back, lands the Eliminator, gets the win. And I think the crowd was into it because, the heat of the House of Torture stuff. So everyone was thrilled to see Great O'Khan get 2 more points on the board. I gave this 3 1/4 star. Fine work. Some good spark in the crowd in the match as well. I thought Great O'Khan was particularly solid here. I don't know what to add. 4 points for Great O'Khan, so 2 points, so he's up to 4 now. Slowly getting out of the doghouse. Evil stays at 10. Tetsuya Naito defeated Gabe Kidd. I thought this was going to be a little more fiery than what we got. And I know one of the tactics is that, that Gabe Kidd uses to get heat in his matches, do the hooligan thing and bring it to the floor and whatnot. But I don't know, like like I don't know what the thing was. I don't know if it's just Naito who wasn't feeling it. Or if Gabe wasn't up on his usual level. Like, and the floor thing just didn't work. It didn't connect. You know, at some point, Gabe Kidd starts piling chairs and barricades on top of each other. And I'm like, what is he gonna do with this? And he does nothing. You know, and I'm like, oh, okay. Tetsuya Naito does an Esperanza, a Saito suplex by Gabe Kidd, little back and forth, and Naito schoolboys Gabe Kidd for the win. He also did, he being Naito, did a Destino during the match. I'm doing air quotes for those of you who are watching right now. Look, I gave it 3 stars. I don't know. I got nothing more for you. Tetsuya Naito now at 6 points. Gabe Kidd still at 6. Shota Umino, Sanada defeated Shota Umino. I mean, this is the most bog standard, 15-minute pro wrestling match you'll see all year. Like, it's just perfectly fine. Good little match. And you've got Sanada, who, at this point, I think you all know how I feel about him, and just the most standard average guy, who has to work really hard to get any kind of reaction out from the crowd. And Shota Umino, who is so hit and miss in these circumstances, where there is moments where he's just like fired up and he's tremendous and he's just adding so much emotional investment in his matches. Everything then everything just clicks and it connects with his offense, and it's just like, all this rules. And then there's days like today where it's just like you're not quite sure why he's not working, why he seems to be sleepwalking through this. Is he working on Sanada's level? Well, if he's working on Sanada's level, maybe you should try to bring Sanada up to another level. But can Shota Umino bring someone else to another level? We don't know that yet. Because this was, overall kind of, I came into this thinking that this was going to be a bit of a test. Let's see if Shota can drag something out of Sanada, but no. I don't know. I don't know what to say. We're slapping on holds early, and there's STFs and, dragon sleepers. Shota Umino at the end of the match is he's firing up. He's got the cradle DDT landing, then does the blaze blade, but Sanada bridges back on a pin and gets the surprise win out of nowhere. Two roll up surprise pins here. Would we be done with shocking pins tonight? I don't know. Stick around, we'll find out together. Sanada gets 2 points, so he's up at 6, and Shota Umino stays at 6. Yes, there's a lot of 6s going on. Shingo Takagi defeated Zack Sabre Jr. This was the best match of the show, but I know these guys can't look. This was a good match, okay? This was a good match. Let's get it out of the way. I gave this 3.5 stars. Early on, you see the pattern here. Zack is going for submissions. Shingo's doing the power offense. He's doing the senton and suplexes and, lariats and all that. And Zack, he's working the arm. He's trying to keep that pumping bomber away as much as possible. So he starts working the arm. There's a superplex by Shingo. You see the drill here. Like, you can already see how this match is going in your head when you say Zack Sabre Jr. versus Shingo Takagi, right? There's this. My favorite part of this match was Zach putting Shingo in this incredible, wacky submission stretch, and he's just stretching the hell out of Shingo. And the camera view was like straight like in front of Shingo. So you saw Takagi like splayed completely out for all to see. And it's just one of these wacky, intense submissions that Zach does, which was tremendous. And he keeps working the arm. We get a PK and then a pumping bomber by Shingo, then a Made in Japan by Shingo, then a Zack driver by Zack Sabre Jr. They trade some strikes, and then the finish comes when Zack has Shingo in a submission, and Shingo can't break out, and the referee is about to call the match. He's about to say, okay, like, you're not responding, and just as he's about to call it, Shingo grabs him by the pants leg and brings him back. It's like, no, don't you dare. And he powers out of it and lands Last of the Dragon for the win. So this one did not end with a surprise schoolboy, surprise roll-up or whatever. Yeah, so there you go. I mean, this was a good match. I'm not going to sit here and tell you this stunk or it was boring. It was not. But this was absolutely not Sabre's and Takagi's best match together. We're not even close to their best match together. It was fine. It was a fine little. It was no, not fine. It was a good match, well wrestled, good, fun stuff, well put together, good story, good drama, but nothing that had a second gear that'd make you go, okay, now we're getting somewhere. I'm hooting and hollering. None of that. So it's, this ends up and you're kind of like, okay, whatever then. I got nothing. Shingo gets 2 more points. He's at 6 overall. Zack Sabre Jr. at 8. As far as my recommendations go, if you're a completionist, watch, Zack Sabre Jr. and Shingo like it's the match of the night, but it's not, in my book, Night 9 is entirely skippable. It's just fine. You get you'll see what the results were, what everything is happening, and there's nothing really dramatic or important or significant that you're missing if you don't watch it. You can just cruise into night to block A in a couple of nights from now, and you'll be fine. That's my assessment. There you go. The standings are right here. Evil still at the top, and the only wrestler with who still has double digits in the entire tournament. Zack Sabre Jr. in second place with 8 points. Then, we're starting to get a logjam here as well. The B block logjam is something that we had seen coming and is very significant because there's like 1 million people who have 6 points. Now we might have here 500,000 people who have 6 points. It's pretty much the same setup, right? Gabe Kidd, Shota Umino, Shingo Takagi, Tetsuya Naito, and Sanada all have 6 points. Callum Newman, Great O'Khan, Jake Lee, all still with 4. So, it's still anyone's game. Even if you want to, look at the possibilities, it's still pretty open. The top guy of the block is, leads comfortably with 10 points, right? Everyone else is still within reach. Don't forget there's 3 people moving forward to the playoffs. So it legitimately still is anyone's ball game. You'd want to say, Callum Newman, Great O'Khan, Jake Lee, they're done. They'll never catch up to Evil, but they don't have to catch up to Evil. They don't. Like, it's everyone is still in play at this point. Now, Evil has only lost one match, as we said, and it is Great O'Khan who got the win tonight. So Great O'Khan has a tiebreaker over Evil. Will that come into play? Will that be significant? I mean, it would only be significant if Great O'Khan wins his next 3 matches, right? Which would mean 6 points, which would bring him up to 10. And then somehow Evil would lose the next 3. And then there'd be other people up there with 10 points. And then it would come down to Great O'Khan or Evil, and Great O'Khan moves forward because he has the tiebreaker. That would be that's the only scenario I see here. I don't think it's a significant tiebreaker. Now, don't forget, Evil probably has the toughest stretch of anyone else in A block left, right? He's got Zack Sabre Jr. left, Shingo Takagi left, and Shota Umino left. So that is quite possibly the most significant, the hardest stretch left for anyone in the tournament. You know, Zach has Evil, he's got Gabe Kidd and Sonata left. Shingo has, outside of Evil, has Jake Lee and Sonata as well. Shota Umino has, as well as Evil, of course, Jake Lee and Tetsuya Naito. So, Gabe Kidd, I'm looking at what's left for him. Like, he could absolutely be a guy who's going to move forward, right? He's got Jake Lee. I mean, that all depends at this point, right? But Gabe Kidd has been a revelation in this tournament. So, and the audience loves him. If you were asking me, I'd have him go forward. So Gabe Kidd over Lee. Then he's got Callum Newman. He should win over Callum Newman. And then he's got Zack Sabre Jr. Maybe he drops it there. But there's an easy possibility for Gabe Kidd to score 4 more points. Like, easily. He's got the potential to score. He has the potential to end with 12 at this point. But there's a fair chance that 10 points would be very good for him and gives him a possibility of qualifying for the playoffs. I mean, Evil has a tiebreaker over him. So does Naito. Like, he's got some significant people with some tiebreakers over him. Shingo, It's just like looking at the math here and at the possibilities based on what we know and best guessing our stuff here. Great O'Khan, I think his biggest hurdle is Naito, if he wanted to continue making an impact, because otherwise he's got Callum Newman and Sonata left. Then again, I wouldn't be surprised if Great O'Khan would want to put Callum Newman, his United Empire brother, over. I wouldn't be surprised in the least either. See, it's still so much anyone's game. Not sitting around doing eliminations and whatnot. The field is still very open on that front. Let's talk about what's coming up next. We're going to be here back on August 4, ergo tomorrow, Sunday, for B Block action. This is what we got for us. And where is this from? Oh, it's from Aichi. Okay. From the Aichi Prefectural Gym. So we're good. Bolton Oleg versus Dave Finlay. El Fantasmo versus Yuya Uemura. That's going to be... It's going to start being do or die time for El Fantasmo, right? It was, in the gutter here. I think let's see what they do with Uemura, right? Uemura, they might continue pushing him, or this might be the extent of the push for this G1. Just giving him, 6 points, big matches, and he's been delivering on everyone. Maybe now it's like, okay, now you're going to lose. Maybe. But El Fantasmo is absolutely in the running to be the first person eliminated from the G1. Jeff Cobb versus Hinare, that's going to rock. Hiroki Goto versus Konosuke Takeshita, that's going to rock. And the main event is Yota Tsuji versus Ren Narita. I don't know what to say. We'll see how that one goes. Yeah, it's night 10 of the G1 on August 4, 2023. We were in Nagoya at the Aichi Prefectural Gym. 3,205 people showed up for the show, which is pretty good. If we compare to last year, and we should, because we actually have a very good comparison if we both compare to the last, because we have a very good comparison to last year. Usually we'll compare night for night, but it hasn't really been in the same venue every time. Now, in this circumstance right here, it is. Last year on night 10 of the G1 Climax 33, we were in Nagoya in the Aichi Gym. 3,545 people were in the house. So not that big a difference, just maybe 200 or so. Main event was Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Hiroki Goto. You also had in the co-main event, I guess, Shingo Takagi versus Tama Tonga. So, you get a Hiroshi Tanahashi main event and you draw 3,500 people. This year, the main event was Yota Tsuji. The co-main event was Hiroki Goto versus Konosuke Takeshita. And Yota Tsuji and Ren Narita, not exactly your top draws of the company right now. And I know they're putting Yota in a lot of in a lot of main events to test out the waters. Right, in a lot. He's been in a couple. And I think there's still at least one more to come, if I'm not mistaken. But I could be mistaken. The point is that they are testing out the waters with Tsuji here. So if Tsuji is at the top, with Hiroki Goto, who I wouldn't consider a draw, maybe interest, wouldn't consider him a draw. Maybe Takeshita up there in a top spot, maybe, but I doubt it. I think this show did very well as far as its attendance overall. The last time that New Japan was in the building was earlier this year for the New Japan Cup, which was which was on March 16, 2023, and they drew 1,750 people. We had Sonata and Jack Perry in the quarterfinals of that when we were in the tail end of the cup. So, this is a dramatic improvement from last time. They were also here even earlier back in the year, back in January. The New Beginning show was here, and they drew 2,710 people, with the main event being Evil versus Tama Tonga in a lumberjack match, which I did not like. You remember that was the match that started and went to a no contest. You remember it it was complete trash, right? It was just awful stuff, and it was not a good show either. I guess the co-main event was Phantasmo and Hikuleo defeating Chase Owens and Kenta over the strong open weight titles. It was not a strong show. So what can we glean from this a little more, right? So let's think about last year once again. 3,500 people get drawn with a main event that includes Hiroki Tanahashi and had Hiroki Goto in it. This year, no Hiroshi Tanahashi, none of the big draws from last year, right? There's no Shingo in the main event. There's no Will Ospreay. There's no Kazuchika Okada. There's no Tetsuya Naito on this show either. But we put Yota Tsuji and Ren Narita in there. And yes, I guess we could talk about Hiroki Goto and Konosuke Takeshita as co-main events, but I don't even think that's all of that significant a draw. The point being here is that they did 3,200 when the last two times New Japan was in Nagoya. This year, they drew a fraction of this. What was it, 1,700 for the New Japan Cup and 2,000 something, 2,000 for anyway. I would say that, look, it's either one of two things, right? Because the G1 technically is like instantly generates interest, right? So maybe if you start on that level, that's good. But maybe our boy Tsuji has a little oomph to him. Maybe he is slowly turning into a veritable draw for New Japan. I think these are compelling numbers, and I think it's fun. We're getting it. I think it's fun that we're able to do a 1-to-1 comp with last year, and then you're able to dredge up the information from other appearances that New Japan has had in Nagoya this year and do the comparison. It's kind of hard to. It's kind of difficult to not say first and foremost that this was a success for them. They must be happy with the number, and it makes an interesting point, an interesting case for Yota Tsuji as a draw. So, developing story. Let's keep an eye on this. I might even go back and check some stuff, and maybe we'll talk about it on the next in 2 days when we reconvene to continue talking about the G1. Let's what are the results? Let's talk about let's go through the results of today's show. And that was, why am I confused here? There we go. David Finlay defeated Oleg Boltin. El Fantasmo defeated Yuya Uemura. Jeff Cobb got the best of Henare. Hiroki Goto scored one on Konosuke Takeshita. And Yota Tsuji defeated Ren Narita. So, and look, overall, let's get into the review. But if you want like a paintbrush overview of what I thought of the show, I thought this show was tremendous. I enjoyed this show a lot. Like, I thought this was a very, very good evening of the G1, of pro wrestling. We even got a great match out of this. I think my match of the tournament. You probably already know what it is, but I'm still gonna keep you hanging in case you're not sure. Just in case you don't know, in case you haven't, in case you're coming in completely blind, I'm gonna leave you in suspense. Dave Finlay, like we mentioned, defeated Boltin Oleg in the opener. This one got time, right? I was like, ooh, 12 minutes for the opener. It's like, okay, this is pretty good. And I feel they've been evening out over the past couple of nights. They've been evening out a lot of the times where you don't have like a couple of matches that are sub 10 minutes, and then you have two matches that are 20 or over 20 or close, very, very close to. Now you have like one 20-minute, you have one long, and it's usually the main event, right? One 20-minute match, and then the rest sort of are in like this sweet spot between 12 to 15 minutes. And I think that makes for really compelling viewing at the same time. And I feel it gives enough time for a lot of people to tell really good stories as well, and have a really good match in the meantime. So I kind of feel like this was the case for Dave Finlay. I thought this was good, like not really good. I thought it was a good match. Oleg is in control until Finlay lariats him, and then over the rails, like on the floor, in a great bump by Oleg. And then Finlay does what he does best, starts using big moves and backbreakers. He does a backbreaker and a camel clutch. Oleg starts throwing him around, does the gut wrench swings, but goes for the Vader bomb, but Finley gets his knees up, does the Irish curse backbreaker, does the Finley roll, which is essentially a kamikaze, which is Oleg's finisher. And Gabe Kidd was on English commentary, and you know, he was, I wouldn't want to say he was shooting, but there were certain moments during his commentary where you felt, at the very least, he's flying very close to the sun. And hear him putting over the fact, that, the kamikaze is just a Finley roll, and putting over Dave Finley because, they're in War Dogs and whatnot, and putting over Dave Finley, saying that's his dad and the Finley roll and so on and so forth. So I thought that was interesting because it is Oleg's finisher, and then you have old Gabe Kidd going, my mate, shoot up, the interesting dynamic he has with Walker Stewart. Let's put it that way. Anyway, Finley wins the match with his finisher. The name escapes me right now. It's not Into Oblivion. It's the Blackout, the Dead Person, the Flashbang. I don't remember. I don't remember what it is. But he gets another 2 points on this one here, and he makes it to 8 on the B side of things. For the tournament, Oleg stays at 4. I gave this 3 stars. I got no problem with it. Good, fun, little opener. Put a good mise en bouche. Good little thing. El Phantasmo defeated Yuya Uemura. This starts off very respectfully as Uemura extends a hand. Shake my hand. ELP, go for it. And they do, and so it starts off, sportsmanship. I'm telling you, this babyface run that Yuya is on, and this was what you needed to do, right? Like these are arguably two big baby faces that New Japan has in its midst. So, I like this. I thought this was very good, very, very good. Suplex into a turnbuckle by El Phantasmo. It seems to send Yuya Uemura in for a loop. Like, it sort of really takes him off his game, puts him in the position, puts him in the best position, which is to work from beneath. That's what Yuya is best at. But he does nonetheless fight back. He does nonetheless fight back. I know English, I promise. And he works ELP's arm throughout this match. Dive to the other side of the rail by El Phantasmo. Even though Jado is telling him not to do it, El Phantasmo's like, nah, I gotta do it, pal. Then back in the ring, ELP does the springboard senton lion salt combo, and then clasps on an ankle lock onto Yuya, who then tries to get a cross arm breaker. Struggles to get it on because ELP is putting up resistance, of which ELP escapes. But when it's finally locked in, ELP finally escapes. There's a tornado DDT by ELP. I thought the spot where ELP does his quote unquote burning hammer, right, which is not a burning hammer, which I remember this because I'm a bit of a nerd when it comes to wrestling move names, even though sometimes they escape me, like Dave Finley's finisher right now. I can't remember for the life of me. You've got a few nights ago, I don't remember which night specifically, and it doesn't matter. ELP does the burning hammer thing, and Chris Charlton calls it a burning hammer of sorts, right? Because you don't have the part where you drop the guy on his skull, right? So Charlton was was safe with it and said it's a burning hammer of sorts. Walker Stewart, I guess, used that today on the broadcast and called it straight up burning hammer. And Gabe Kidd, again, who was on a tear, just straight out said, that's not a burning hammer, you whatever, he sort of called him a name. You have to drop him on his fucking head to be a burning hammer. And I'm like, yes, that's true. I thought that was just being straight up called out. Like, no, that is not a burning hammer. Burning hammers are like, the burning hammer is a tremendously dangerous move, and it should stay as such. And it has a mystique around it that should be maintained. Anyway, we're not getting into a move debate here. Thunder Kiss 86 follows a German suplex by Yuya Uemura. We get some close near falls, a dragon suplex by Uemura again. An ELP rolls up Uemura into a pinning predicament that he can't kick out of. He does one of those things where he just lies over the legs, and it's like, it looks like it's a great visual pin, visually, because it does look like no one should be able to kick out of it. Like no living, breathing human should be able to to get their way out of it. I thought this was really friggin' good. I gave this 3 3/4 star. I was into it. I thought it was good. ELP up now with 4 points. Uemura still at 6. We talked about this. And we were wondering, we said it amongst ourselves. Did Uemura's little push happen? And now, he's going to finish with 6. Yeah, maybe the push for Uemura in this tournament was, you're going to come out the gate looking great, kid. And on top of that, with the points, Uemura has been wrestling tremendous matches throughout. So is the push done? I'm just saying, like, we're not victory lapping here, but I'm just saying, like, keep an eye out for it. Maybe he could win another match, but we're definitely not sweeping the block anymore. Jeff Cobb defeated Henare. This is good, solid, strong, big, strong, meaty man fight. You gotta have these. This is you have to have these in this tournament. And you know what? Let's run through the match real quickly. They're trying to take each other down. Jeff Cobb has to do a jumping shoulder tackle to take him down, and Henare fights back, does a senton, gut wrench suplex by Cobb, a disaster kick by Henare, a tremendous one at that, just great stuff. Cobb drop kicks him onto while Henare is up on the turnbuckle. Like that's just impressive in and about itself. And then he climbs up and does a stalling superplex, which is always awesome. Standing moonsault follows and his spin cycle. Jeff Cobb is on a roll. Leaping knee strike by Henare and a berserker bomb. German suplex follows. And then German suplex follows, then a rampage, F5000 by Cobb. And then there's a moment where, like, they're, of course, just dropping bombs on each other, taking each other down. And then there's this moment where they're both, like, kneeling in front of each other, and Cobb is the healthier of the two, and he's getting back on his feet, and he's telling Henare, get up. They did the respect thing, being in the same faction and whatnot. And he's egging his boy on, get up. And Henare seems gutted. He can't seem to do it. He seems out of it. And he does, Jeff Cobb's, hang 10 thing. This is what that is, right? Anyway. And Jeff Cobb does the crown thing, and then does a tour of the islands for the win. Yeah, I could have done maybe without that segment, which seemed a little off. Like it didn't. This as good as I like this match. Don't get me wrong. It didn't feel like Henare had been through the hell to, concede his match to Jeff Cobb, if that makes sense. It came off a little weird. I feel like it was a little dichotomy in the storytelling. I know what they were trying to say, but I feel like the path we took to get to it didn't validate Hinare taking, throwing the match. Not throwing the match, but accepting the loss, if that makes sense. Or conceding. That's the word I was looking for. Conceding the loss to his boy. It was hard hitting. It was good, but I don't feel like it was that brutal of a match. I still really liked it. I just thought that bit was weird, and it sort of took me out of it. 3.5 stars for me, though. I thought it was very good. Jeff Cobb up at 8, up there at the top, and Hinare stays at 6. And then we had Hiroki Goto defeating Konosuke Takeshita in an absolutely fantastic match. This was a great match. I love this so much. I love so many things about this match. Takeshita's in control. DDT on the floor. DDT on the apron. So he's ringing Goto's bell early. They're trading some open hand strikes after that, but Konosuke takes him out with a huge forearm. Just great stuff to begin with. Like right off the bat, you're like, oh, okay, it's gonna be one of these. It's gonna be one of these. Goto fights back with the Saito suplex. A Topikon Hilo by Takeshita also follows. Goto gets a hope spot. It ends with an Ushigoroshi. Takeshita pummels Goto into a blue thunder bomb. Later on, Goto hits a sunset bomb. TK then does the I think it's the scrunchie, right? No, it's not the scrunchie, nor the dude buster. No, that's the. It's like a belly to back thing. This I can never remember the name of this particular variant of the pile driver where you do belly to belly and Takeshita underhooks the legs and then he drops, right? I can never remember what that one's called, but I always think, oh, it's a dude buster, it's a scrunchie, but it's not. You put the other guy on your back, basically. But Takeshita does that, and he does that move, lands it, holds onto the legs, or holds on to Goto, and does a wheelbarrow German, which is just fantastic. Goto fires back up and takes him down with a lariat. Follows up with the GTW brainbuster by Takeshita, Shotenkai by Goto, and crowd goes nuts. Crowd was into this, and when the Shotenkai came out of nowhere, that was just everyone just roared. Tremendous headbutt spot. This was great, where Goto headbutts Takeshita, and they're both like sort of standing against each other, just leaning. And you can see just like Takeshita slowly, very slowly, just crumbling into dust over the headbutt, but like slowly. And it's so good. GTR by Goto for the win. And the intensity of this match was unparalleled, and everything just connected and made sense. And it was hard hitting. It was fast paced. It was everything that I love out of the G1 Climax. This is the type of match that gets all the proper hormone rushes going. I'm just sitting there. I'm like, this is so good. This is all so good. And then I get excited. Then I'm like, yes, this is it. Let's go. This is the feeling. This is what I should be feeling throughout the entire tournament. Let's go. It's the G1, baby. This match ruled. And I'm sitting there watching it, watching these two, watching Konosuke Takeshita just like, continue to make a case for being right now one of the top 10 pro wrestlers in the world. Like what he's doing, what he does in these matches with such smoothness, crispness, Everything looks, all of his offense looks harsh. And he's so good. You know, he does the tope con hilos. He's always on point. He always lands them. And then Goto, on the other hand, you know, one of the guys of the old generation, one of the guys that all these new guys is, is coming for his spot. But here he is, having a great G1, but not only that, having, in my opinion, not just great matches, good matches, the best match of the tournament. Showing all these kids how it should be done. Why aren't we getting this? I mean, look, and again, I want to say too many things at once. I've enjoyed this tournament tremendously. Like, I think this has been a really fun G1 to follow and to chat about. But why aren't we getting matches like this once a night? What's keeping these guys from coming out there and just tearing the house down like this at least once on every show? Because look at what happened here. We're talking about the young generation. We're talking about, you know, Umino and Tsuji, Narita, Yumera. Let's throw in, you know, Bolton and Newman in that as well, although they're on another, in another environment as far as new guys go. But bear with me, you know, we're talking about all these guys, how it's time for them to take their place. Gabe Kidd, let's throw Gabe Kidd in here as well. Gabe Kidd as well. And, and we're talking about how good the G1 has been for guys like Kidd and Yumera. But the great match of the tournament, the one that's just, that got the hair standing on my arms, was performed by a guy who doesn't even go here, and an older guy. A guy who, in the overall in the grand arc of the G1, a guy whose time is running up as far as his career goes, his G1 presences go. And right now, I could not tell you that this tournament would have benefited by not having Hiroki Goto in it. I don't know what he did. I don't know who he schmoozed to secure his spot in the G1 this year. But that was a brilliant move. He's been solid throughout. And then one night of this tournament, he sits back. Well, no, he doesn't sit back, but he gets amped up and he's like, okay, tonight's the night. And probably he and Takeshita were like, well, look at the main event. Let's go have the main event caliber match, because it's not going to happen with these two other guys. That was a fair guess. If that's how it happened, that's a fair assessment, because the main event wasn't even close to being this special. I mean, this is what you want out of your G1 climaxes. This is the feeling. This is what you want. You want shit like, you know, you want shit like Gabe Kidd and Shingo, and you want this. This ruled. Tremendous stuff. Match of the tournament so far. Like, to me right now, this is where the bar is. If you want to do better, this is what you're aiming for. And let's go. And I hope you, because here's the one thing that ultimately is missing right now from the G1. And again, I want to emphasize that I've been enjoying the tournament. But if you think back, and you inevitably cannot, you go back to the great period of G1s from the 2010s, right? You'd have guys come out and have these excellent matches, like these top tier world-class matches, and then they'd go backstage, and then what would happen is, what would happen is that the other guys backstage would be looking at this, and then they'd get together and they'd talk And you're like, well, you know what? You and me, you know, two other guys. Well, we just saw this match. Our you know, next week, you know, or in 2 nights we're fighting. Let's show them better. Let's do better. Let's show them up. And then they'd go out and they'd have a better match, or you know what I mean? They'd always be trying to one up each other. You know, there's a weird misconception that sometimes I find with some wrestling fans, not all, that, you know, wrestling locker rooms are like, yeah, everyone are coworkers and get along okay, and you know, everyone just sticks to their spot in their lane and that's it. But when in reality, it's a very competitive environment, and it has to be very competitive right now in New Japan. It has to be. I would have no. I absolutely believe that backstage, people are jockeying for positioning, and because of all the changes that are coming, and I'm sure some people are just scared of their spots, for their spots is what I mean. And I think what's missing right now is things like this. Now, if we consider my hypothesis, right, that everything is very competitive in the locker room right now, and that people are, you know, they want to make sure they have a spot. They want to make sure they you know, they're the star, that we focus on good things about them. Wouldn't it be plausible to imagine that guys would look at this match, look at Hiroki Goto versus Konosuke Takeshita, and then chat amongst themselves, and they're like, look, on Tuesday, you and me, we got to tear the house down. And they're like, okay, that's a good idea, shake. Because again, all the new guys are they're doing well, don't get me, like, they're doing fine, depending on, you know, there's of course variance, but they're doing fine. But the two guys who right now, in my opinion, have the match of the tournament is an old guy or an older guy, and a guy who is not only old, it's not even a question that he's old, is that he is a representation of the old era of New Japan, the era that we're slowly coming out of. That one guy, and a guy who doesn't even go there. I'm Shota Umino. I'm Yota Tsuji. I'm Gabe Kidd. I'm looking at all this and I'm like, you know what? We got to do something about this. Let's work together, pal. That's what these matches are for. That's what it should be. It's like, it should ignite everyone backstage to just tear the house down. I hope so. The tournament's not over yet. We still got quite a few nights, you know. It's not. I'm not saying this as if it's like, oh well, we've got 2 nights left. A little too late. Too little, too late. But it would have been nice if this kind of stuff were happening really early, because we did have really good matches early on. Night 1 is practically only that, right? But then again, it's night 1, you know, and you're like, will this sustain? Well, I wouldn't say it's sustained. Not on a very high level. Anyway. Hiroki Goto is at 6 points now. Takeshita stays at 6. I gave this match 4.5 stars. And then Yota Tsuji defeated Ren Narita, which was fine. A good little match, you know. Narita attacks during introductions. It's, you know, we're doing all that stuff, you know, and there's stuff on the floor, and Ren Narita works Tsuji's knees, and you know, all that stuff. Boston crabs and whatnot. Yota Tsuji fights back with a suplex, an exploder, a knee bar, you know, follows by Ren Narita. You know, Yota Tsuji does the stomp, runs into another knee bar, does a headbutt and that Falconaro type thing that he sit out slam that he does. Then, of course, there's the ref bump. And this is the thing that I realized, right, when I was watching this match. Maybe I'm recording this, of course, on Sunday, August 4th, and I'm coming off of watching WrestleMania, not WrestleMania, SummerSlam, WWE SummerSlam yesterday. Now, this is not going to turn into a SummerSlam review, don't trust me, but here's the thing. In the Cody Rhodes Solo Sikoa match, I couldn't get invested in the match because I was waiting for the nonsense to happen. I was just waiting for people to come out. Whether it be the Tongans, or Roman, or whoever the fuck else, you know? I was just waiting for people to run in. I wasn't invested in the match because like, there's no point. And this is always kind of the thing here where I'm like, well, I'm just waiting for the ref bump. I'm just waiting for the nonsense. Because this is why I get so annoyed with House of Torture interference and whatnot. It's because up until the interference, because there is a match going on that once the interference hits, has a very high chance to completely be wiped away. That match can suddenly cease to exist because there's a ref bump and then the House of Torture nonsense begins. You know, Ren Narita's matches have not been as full of, you know, stuff. You know, you don't have Yoshinobu Kanemaru running around or Dick Togo or, you know, Yujiro. We're not doing the arena blackouts. Show's not around. We're not doing wrenches. We're not doing all the usual bullshit, right? But I still expect it. I wait for it. So it does take me out of these matches to a degree where I'm like, I'm on my guard and I'm just waiting for it to happen because I have a sinking feeling that when the interference does happen, it erases everything that happened previous to that. That's why it's so annoying when this shit happens, because at some point you're like, let's just do it and get it over with. So I kind of felt like this in this match where I'm like, I'm waiting for stuff to happen, you know? So, you know, like I said, the ref bump happens and Yota Tsuji avoids getting clocked with the push-up bar or whatever it is. Marlowe Stomp is avoided by Narita. Low blow by Yota Tsuji. He clips the knee. He goes for the X Factor, but Tsuji blocked it like a god. I thought it was tremendous because, you know, the X Factor, it's a sit down kind of bulldog thing, and he does it, but Tsuji like puts his hands down, like boom, keeps, you know, and basically supporting himself so that his head never reaches the ground. And I thought that was such a visually awesome block, and he lands the spear for the win. Look, the 3.25 star, I thought it was well worked. The nonsense has a tendency to take me out of these things, and Tsuji, again, you know, all to his credit, if he being in the main event was able to draw people, like, he's got something, but you know, where was the spark that I had in Takeshita and Goto earlier? Where's the spark that's animating Yumera right now? Like, and don't get me wrong, I really like Yota Tsuji, and he has everything to be the guy, and I think they believe he's going to be the guy, but he needs to be in danger a little bit. There's urgency lacking in his matches, and I think that can eventually be a detriment, at least in the tournament. And I'm not saying he didn't wrestle urgently, just that there's lacking, you know. Here's the thing, and we're because the standings of B Block right now are so close that everyone in this friggin' block has to be wrestling with urgency. Look, as far as recommendations, if we follow the pattern, if we go with recommendations, it's an easy rec. It's Hiroki Goto and Kensuke Takeshita. You make time out of your day to go watch this. I thought it was a tremendous fight. But I would say watch the show. I think it's as much as yesterday's was skippable, I think today we had a really entertaining pro wrestling show. But B Block has been very good as well throughout the tournament. So there we go. So that's as far as recommendations go. Now, if we talk about the standings, Dave Finlay, Jeff Cobb at 8. We've got how many people have you got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 people at 6 points. And then Oleg Boltin and El Fantasmo. Boltin Oleg, excuse me. And El Fantasmo at the Oleg. No, it is Oleg Boltin. Why am I always confused? Anyway, they have 4 points. They're at the bottom. But again, I gotta harken back to when I did my preview with Chris Samza. We were both saying, Block B has the potential to be the block that will have the most people tied. That we'll be guessing till the very end who's making it or not. I don't think anyone expected it to be this bad, or at least we don't even have one runaway who's at the top. Even if Finlay and Jeff Cobb are tied for first, everyone else is still within reach. Don't forget, there's 3 people moving forward. Everyone is still within reach. It's anyone's ball game still at this point. Even El Fantasmo. Look, let's say a guy like El Fantasmo, I always use him as an example, but nonetheless, even if he wins his next 3, he still has the potential to be in the running. If he wins his next 3, that's 6 points. That brings him up to 10. Now, he's got, Jeff Cobb has a tiebreaker over him. That's significant because Cobb is at the top right now, but Fantasmo hasn't fought David Finlay yet. Fantasmo's final matches are going to be a rough go. He's got Finlay, Goto, and Takeshita. So it's not going to be, spices and pumpkin pie here. That's not going to be an easy one for him. Just like, he's still in this. I think it's reasonable to believe that Oleg Boltin is not going to make it. But you never know, because again, you have 3 matches left, and in these 3 matches, if you win these 3 matches, you're still in contention. I'm not ready to soft eliminate anyone. Still, I think the field is still way too open, and we've been seeing a bunch of surprises here. So, Fantasmo may have a chance. Boltin may have a chance. I'm not ready to completely discredit him. I don't know what. Look, management really likes Boltin. They really do. So we'll see what happens. And Finlay and Cobb at the top right now. They've got a tiebreaker coming up. When is their match? Let's take a look. Today was the 4th. When is the next match? So it's not on August 7, not the 8th, and that would take us to the 10. It will be on the 10. So they're going to have, that's going to be a crucial tiebreaker right there. That's going to set the stage for a lot of things. Just like Yota Tsuji and Yuya Uemura, who are also going to be fighting on the 10th. Because they're going to be in contention as well. Uemura has Narita Boltin and Tsuji. So Tsuji is quite effectively his most important victory, or match, I should say, coming up. Or, of course, a victory would be good. And Tsuji has Cobb, he has Hinare, and Yumera as well. And on top of that, these two, they already have history. They've been building the rivalry between these two guys here. So, I'll tell you this, that match is the main event of the 10th. And the co-main event, Jeff Cobb versus Dave Finlay. It's starting to feel like these four guys are going to be in the mix. That it's going to be these four guys. Or at the very least, one guy is going to be completely set aside here, right? Well, that's the point. What am I talking about? But it's going to be these four guys as we head into the last few moments of the G1 this year. That's going to be on the 10th, as I said. So again, the field is too wild. It's very unpredictable, but we got some big matches coming up. We got some really big matches coming up. B Block. Look, Hiroki Goto and Dave Finlay's coming up. And see, look, when it comes to Finlay and Cobb, for B Block, of course, on August 7, we have Jeff Cobb versus Oleg Boltin. That's probably going to be a Jeff Cobb victory, right? And then Dave Finlay versus Hiroki Goto in the main event. One could assume that Dave Finlay's going to win. So they're probably going to stay at the top of the block with the 10 points to make it even more meaningful, to make their main event even more meaningful. Well, their co-main event, I should say, on the 10th. Tsuji's taking on Hinare and Yumera taking on Narita. So it is plausible that these two guys will run away with the next 2 points. So it's really going to come down to those four guys, I would assume. Yumera, Tsuji, Goto, Finlay. That's how I'm feeling it right now. But the field is so wide. There's still so much stuff that could happen. I'm just looking at card placement. I'm looking at what's going on. Takeshita, I think he might be a potential spoiler, but I think he's kind of out of the conversation slowly. But he still might spoil things because look, he's got Narita, Boltin, and El Fantasmo left. Like, he should win those three, or does Fantasmo get a win on him here? I think we might be close to the end of his tournament. But he might he's not involved in any top tier matches anymore. These are, Narita, Boltin, Fantasmo, these are not top tier guys. He's not going to be main eventing, the final night of B Block action against these guys. Any of three of these guys. It's just not happening. I don't think he's qualifying. Am I going to be bold and suddenly do a very live thing and soft eliminate Konosuke Takeshita? Does that make sense? He's at 6 points. He could score 3 more. He could be up to 12. No. I'm very close on it though. Oh, I'm so close. Like, just looking at who he has left, it's not significant. These are not significant wins. He'll probably win against Narita, probably win against Boltin, and lose against El Fantasmo. That would be my call. I'm not ready to eliminate him though. Feels too volatile. Let's go right ahead. Let's just jump right in, and leave a like on YouTube, by the way, and a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, and a 5-star rating on Spotify. But let's get to it. Today being August 6, 2024, the first of 2 nights in Korken Hall over in Tokyo. Sellout crowd. 1,000. I was gonna say 15,000. That just wouldn't be physically possible. That would be a health hazard, a fire hazard, a well-being hazard. Just hazards piled over hazards if you were to squeeze in 15,000 into Korakuen Hall. 1,503 people, though, packed in one of wrestling's most hallowed halls. If we are to compare with, let's see here. If we are to compare with last year, Night 11 was not in Korakuen, though. It was in the Takamatsu City Gym in Kagawa, Japan. And they drew 1,559 people there. So not bad. Of course, nothing says awesome more than a sold out Korakuen Hall. The main event last year for the for Night 11 of the Climax 33 was Kazuchika Okada versus Kenta. And co-main eventing was Yota Tsuji versus Shota Umino, which, to my recollection, was a very good match. So there you have it. Like, you got to fill Korakuen, right? I mean, let's take a look. Let's see what the last time New Japan was in Korakuen this year. Well, they've been here a couple of times, of course, but the last time they were here, there we go. 1,225 people. That was just about a month ago during the Seoul tour, and these were the qualifying semifinal matches for the G1. Where Callum Newman defeated Kenta, Oleg Bolton defeated Hiroshi Tanahashi. Like, these were some, this had some attraction, right? And Yoshihashi defeated Tomohiro Ishii in a great match. So that's the last time they were in Korakuen. Let's see if we were to compare with, look, the Despe Invitational sold out, which was in June. And otherwise, before that, they were there for 3 consecutive nights of Best of Super Juniors this year. 3 consecutive nights, May 29, 30, and the 31st. 1,355 for night 1, 1,170 for night 2, and 1,483 for night 3, which was main evented by the semifinals, Taiji Shimori versus TJP and El Desperado versus Doki. So, I mean, they've been doing good. I mean, most of them do good in Korakuen. When I say, in Noah, All Japan, they do good business. I mean, at the same time, look, I have a Dragon Gate result here in front of me. Rainbow Gate Night 4 on May the on June 6th. 1,296. So you see, even Dragon Gate's doing good. Like, DDT's doing good. There's these very unique cases in which, things don't go as well. Like TJPW doesn't do well in Korakuen. Marigold, right, had a big showing for their opener, their big first show that was headlined with Bozilla, and was it Sari versus Utami and Julia? Was it Sari in the main event? I can't remember. Last time that Marigold was here, though, was just on July 30th, just a couple of days ago, actually, for their Summer Gold Shine tour. 118 people, main evented by Mei Sakurai and Mirai, defeating Miku Aono and Natsumi Shozuki, not quite sure. And that was for their tag team title finals. Julia was on the show too. She was co-main eventing with Sari versus in a tag team versus Kizuna Tanaka and Victoria Yuzuki. There you go. Zeta Steel was on the show, and according to Cage Match, she was involved in the worst show, the worst rated match on the show. Anyway, this is not a Marigold thing. This is a New Japan thing. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I remember. You remember a couple of weeks ago, we had mentioned this. A couple of weeks ago, a couple of shows, whenever, but the New Japan Global account was patting themselves on the back for selling out 2 nights at Cork and Hall. And I was like, business has not been great. Okay. Overall, like business is picking up, despite the fact that there's some fluctuations in the economy, right? Yeah, I don't know if you saw this, but like the Japanese yen yesterday like dropped to historically bad levels, like Black Friday levels of terror, but everything sort of bounced back today, so that's good because the Japanese pro wrestling right now is sort of getting back on its feet. It's starting to perform well again, like not great but well, and then if if the economy takes a hit, then you're like, oh Jesus, they're never gonna pull out of this. This is doom, but no, like the economy's doing well. Well, it's doing well, like everything sort of bounced back. Where was I going with this? Oh yeah, so the business in New Japan is better than any other, Puro promotion right now. Sure, they're the biggest. This is what you expect. But, it's not gangbusters, but it has been improving. It's not terrible. But it's not, patting yourself on the back because you're filling up Cork and Hall is a little weird. It's a little strange. And okay, this was my original point. If business was really bad, really bad, they go to Nagoya like they did Nagoya a couple of nights ago where they did like 3,000 people. Let's say they went to Nagoya and they drew 700. And then they're like, hey, we filled out Cork and Hall. You're like, good, okay, I get you, like if this tour was completely like underselling, underwhelming, 500 people in buildings, something where you're like, what the hell's going on? Then you sort of like pat yourself on the back and you say, hey, we filled out Cork. But even so, like New Japan should be doing great numbers in Korakuen. You're in Tokyo. It is a hollowed hall. It is one of the meccas of wrestling fans. And on top of that, Japanese wrestling fans flock to it as well. Like these are smart wrestling fans who go there as well. You should be filling up Korakuen is my point. So Korakuen is apparently sold out for tomorrow as well. But don't get me wrong. It's good. It's good business. It's a good sign. The opposite would not be a good sign. But it's not a revelatory sign that, oh, finally New Japan, it's pulling itself out of the dank depths that it was in. No, it's Korakuen. They should be filling it up. That is the point. Anyway, it's kind of like saying, oh, WWE in 1982 drew a massive crowd at Madison Square Garden. You're like, of course. Of course they should. It's WWE in the 80s or the 70s, Anyway, I got off track. Believe if you want to believe that, something that never ever happens. Let's talk about the results. Let's go over the results. Very quickly. To begin with, Great-O-Khan defeated Callum Newman. Jake Lee defeated Gabe Kidd. Zack Sabre Jr. Got one over Evil. We'll talk about that, of course. Tetsuya Naito beat Shota Umino, and Sanada got the best of Shingo Takagi on this night. So let's get to it. Let's start reviewing this show with the opener. As we mentioned, Great-O-Khan getting one over Callum Newman. Of course, these are two stable mates, faction mates, unit mates. Unit mates doesn't sound right. I should not say that again. And I thought this one started off fast, and overall, I thought this was one of Callum Newman's better G1 outings. I think he looked very good here, and no surprise, Great-O-Khan clearly, helping out his buddy here. Both guys working hard. We've talked about it many times, and I don't want to rehash all the same points over and over again, but Great-O-Khan has been working really hard, I find, this tournament. They counter in and out of each other's moves. Great-O-Khan is in control for a bit. Couple of PKs and a standing moonsault by Newman and the windmill kick, but Great-O-Khan catches the Oz Cutter, which leads to the Eliminator for the win. You know what I kind of think this might... You know how a lot of folks are complaining about Callum Newman, calling him, Will cosplay, and, basically not giving the kid a chance, right? If there was ever a moment here where you could be like, let me try and do something else than an Oz Cutter. Maybe trying to do things that aren't immediately associated with will help me forge my own identity. This is something I talked about on the very first night of G1 action, where you can go back and listen to the tape. I was right here telling you that the more Callum Newman lays in, feeds into the Will Ospreay references, which I understand because he's his protege, etc., etc. Like, I get it. Don't worry, I'm not a dummy. But the more he feeds into it, the more people are going to make the association, and that will turn into a negative for Callum Newman. And this is what happened throughout the tournament, where people somehow immediately expect him to be this grandiose pro wrestler when he's 21 years old and he's finding his footing, and he's in a perfect spot here to be put in, to be thrown in. Like, this is being thrown into the deepest deep, this is it's the G1, man. Like, this is more than a put up or shut up type. This is you defining yourself for the next year, and hopefully performing well enough to secure a spot for next year, right? This was all the narrative for Newman, but then all the Will cosplay stuff started happening, which is a funny nickname. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy the funny nickname. So he in the past couple of matches, this is what I'm trying to get at. He's been doing the Oz Cutters, and he's been like Jake Lee choke slammed him out of thin air off of an Oz Cutter. Then you have Great-O-Khan catching him off of an Oz Cutter. Maybe we're in a position where we're like, we do this a couple of more times, and Newman is going to be like, look, I can't use Oz Cutters anymore. Because Will did them so often that even he had to transition for them. I can't use it because I'm not Will. I got to find something else. So maybe this is a nice little way, and I might be working myself into a shoot here, don't get me wrong. Maybe this is a nice little way to tell the story of Callum Newman abandoning the Will Ospreay stuff, because he's realizing, I can't use this. I can't use this as effectively as Will, because Will had been using it across New Japan for years. And even he himself started using other moves because everyone was expecting the Oz Cutter. He started using, the Stormbreaker and the Hidden Blade and the what's the other one? The Fall from Grace. No, the the trust fall, for some reason it's completely slipping my mind. The twisting flip, not a sky twister. Is it sky twister? I think it is sky twister. Because there's another one he does that's named after an Assassin's Creed thing. Look, I don't remember. If anyone remembers, please post in the comments. I will gladly give you props. So maybe Callum Newman is going to. But look, anyway, regardless of the evolution of Callum Newman at this point, his tournament's over. It's done. Commentary was putting it over. He is officially the first man to be eliminated from the G1 Climax 34. Because by losing to the Great Okan, he stays at 4 points, and mathematically then he cannot win, because you have two guys who are at there are two guys who are at 10 points right now, and there are two guys at 8, and it just so happens that the two guys who are at 8, which are Sanada and Tetsuya Naito. Well, he hasn't fought Naito yet, right? He hasn't fought Naito yet. Newman has, but he has fought Sanada, and Sanada has the tiebreaker over him. So there's no way Callum Newman could suddenly win his next two and potentially squeeze into third place. He's done. He's toast. He's absolutely toast. And they played it off as such. And I think that was also good as part of the story, as part of the opener, that these guys were working hard because they really, really, really wanted the points. They don't want to be left behind, kind of thing. But it just didn't work out for Newman. Worked out for Great Okan. He is still in the conversation at 6 points. I gave this match 3 stars. I thought it was good. I thought it was a good little match. Short. It's an opener. It does what it's supposed to do. Then, moving on, Jake Lee defeated Gabe Kidd via countout in a wild match that Corkin was really into. Boy, I mean, listen, this crowd was in top form. Like, they were ready for some big G1 stuff. And this is what I forgot to mention at the start, from the get-go. I think everyone worked hard tonight because it's Corkin, because it was a hot crowd. And I think the crowd really fed everyone tonight. And I think everyone gave a little extra something. Like, this was a good night of pro wrestling. This was a good show. I enjoyed myself. And, yes, there was a little wackadoo, little crazy nonsense happening, but it didn't bother me. It didn't bother me. And it all sort of connected. It all made sense. And boy, this crowd was just eating it up. And I feel like it was handed back to them by the wrestlers, by the guys involved, because, and especially when it came to Jake Lee versus Gabe Kidd. Jake Lee comes out. These are both war dogs, right? And Jake Lee comes out. He's got 2 glasses. He's got 2, beverages. I'm assuming, beer. Kind of looked like, they kind of looked like beer. Maybe some other amber drink. I don't know. But he's coming out, he wants to cheer with his buddy from, I feel, this is how I feel like Jake Lee doesn't mesh with the War Dogs. Because I feel the War Dogs would come out with bottles of, whiskey, Jack Daniels, or if they were to come out with beer, they'd come out with the cans or the bottles. They wouldn't be coming out with fancy little the glasses weren't fancy, but they wouldn't come out with glasses of beer. They'd come out with the Sapporo in can, They'd come out with the whole 12 pack. They'd come out with the keg. That's the energy that the War Dogs give off, right? Not Jake Lee coming with 2 perfectly served glasses that were poured out by, some of the catering staff backstage. Perfectly executed, delicately poured out. No. He's so weird in this group. It's so weird. But you know, Gabe Kidd doesn't give a shit. He's got no time for this. He's in this to win it, and you have to appreciate this stuff, and because so many times, you know, and I'm still reeling from SummerSlam. Let me tell you, there, so many times I'll talk about how pro wrestlers, it's like, just focus on winning. What are you doing? What are you do? You have the win. Why are you going for the chair to beat this person up? You can beat the person up after you win the match. Just focus on winning the match. Does winning the match not matter to you? Right? How many times have I said, have I said this? And I'm sure it's crossed your mind as well, where you're like, just go in there and win the match. What are you doing with all this nonsense? Gabe Kidd is like, I have no time for this nonsense. And he goes straight for his buddy, his faction mate, and starts beating the tar out of him. Then he attacks him with the chair. And then he tries to attack him with the table. Like, not put him on a table. No, actually throwing a fucking table at him. Jake Lee fights back. He gets some chair shots in. And the match hasn't started at this point. Like, it's just utter chaos. And we go into the stands. Right up into Corkin. Crowd is up. Well, they're not up on their feet. They don't stand up on their feet. But you know, if it was part of the etiquette, because they follow their etiquette, Jesus Christ, if it was part of the etiquette to jump up on their feet, you know, kind of like they do back in in the 80s, for instance, you know, they'd be up on their feet here. This was a lot of fun in the stands. You know, they're going after each other. And finally, the match gets going into the ring. There's some back and forth. Lee chokeslams Kidd. I can't emphasize enough how into this the crowd was. And Gabe Kidd, man, he is over with the Japanese crowds. Like, he is, they just love him. And he's a scumbag. He's a dirtbag. You know, but they love him. They are into him. They were not just Corkin, but I found Corkin to be particularly loud for him. Yeah, and look, both guys stand and strike. A kick to the face sends Kidd to the floor. German on the floor by Kidd. JL punks Kidd right into the rails so that Kidd can beat the 20 count. And that's a win for Jake Lee by countout. And I'll tell you what, this was the most fired up and exciting Jake Lee I've seen so far. I think this ranks up there with his best matches of the G1, if only because of the spirit that he had in this one here, where he was completely thrown out of his usual stoic, oh, I'm interested, not interested, you know, and not doing his ha 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 super villain anime laugh, you know. It's like none of that. It was just like, it was a brawl. It was a fight. I like this. I like this a lot. I gave this 3 1/4 stars. Don't let the cage match time fool you at 4:53. This overall was a longer match with all the nonsense happening on the floor. So both these guys are now at 6 points. Jake Lee gets another 2. He's at 6. And Kidd stays at 6. Tons of fun. Fun match. Zack Sabre Jr. defeated Evil. We get Zack's entrance music hitting and he's not coming out. So immediately you're like, oh, here we go. Like, if you've been even remotely watching New Japan for the past 2 years, you're like, oh boy. Oh boy. And yep, and it's exactly what you expected. Evil is dragging Zack Sabre Jr. out from the backstage area in a headlock. And Dick Togo is there. They double team him. Throw some powder in his face. There's a magic killer. and then the match starts eventually after all of this nonsense, and then the match starts, and Evil immediately tries to pin him. You know, he does the thing where he pins 3 times in a row, but Zack Sabre Jr. schoolboys Evil into the actual pin. The official match lasted 19 seconds. This has got to be one of the shortest. I'm pretty sure it's not the shortest, but this has got to be one of the shortest. And Zack Sabre Jr., what does he do? He goes off and he celebrates in the crowd. He goes off, celebrates in the crowd. Evil chases him down, and they run, to the, I guess the concourse or whatever. They run out of the actual arena and into the concourse. But then they start running back in, and I'm looking at this like, this is an absolute Zack Sabre Jr. thing, right? He's having a blast. Here's the thing. Like, this is nonsense, right? But there has been so little of it throughout this tournament. There hasn't been one match every 2 nights where it's Yano doing shtick, or there hasn't been any of this. And this was a bit of a surprise on top of that, because everyone was expecting a match. I think they might be just hanging on to this one for maybe a little later down the line in this tournament, if you see what I'm doing here. If you're picking up what I'm laying down. I don't think this was a mistake. I don't think this was just, hey, let's have a night off. I think this is purposeful. I think it makes a lot of sense that, because look, via this win, Zack Sabre Jr. is up at 10 now. 10 points alongside Evil. So he is very much in the conversation still. And I wouldn't say a shoo-in, but he's almost there to guarantee a spot in the playoffs. So, if Zack Sabre Jr. goes through and so do Evil, and whatever they decide to do, whether they, they're second and third, or whether one of those two is, the winner of the block and gets the bye, I think we're running Zack Sabre Jr. versus Evil again in the playoffs. I think this is an indication of that. Folks, I think this might be a little breadcrumb here that if you're not paying attention, the pigeons will come get. And then what happens when the pigeons get the breadcrumb? The pigeons don't care about the significance of the breadcrumb. So if they're just going to eat it up. Just going, so don't let the pigeons take this away without you noticing this breadcrumb. I'm not saying that this is absolutely what's going to happen. But I don't think this happened by pure accident because the guys wanted a night off. The coincidence is too strong for me to just sit here and say, wasn't this a nice little diversion? No, I think this is meaningful. I think that it's to not, I think it's to avoid running too many matches that we've seen. And they can already go into the match saying, oh, well, Zack Sabre Jr. rolled up Evil 19 seconds, kind of thing. But that's not going to happen if they fight again, right? But still. Zack Sabre Jr. and Evil tied at the top at 10. In fact, we should consider that Zack Sabre Jr. is the leader. He's in the number 1 spot. I'm gonna flip this around right now on my standings that are available if you're watching the video right now, either on YouTube or Spotify. Zack Sabre Jr. is in the top spot because he holds the tiebreaker over Evil now. So, that's where we're at for that 10 apiece. Tetsuya Naito defeated Shota Umino. I thought this was good. I thought this was, again, another good little match. And it's another match that starts quickly, like not before the bell, but right at the bell. Shota Umino is just like going right in. So again, I'm appreciating this idea that guys need to score points, and they're feeling the squeeze, and they got to score points. And Shota Umino, the young guy, the guy that a lot of people put a lot of stock into, the guy who calls himself the new ace of the company, he's like, okay, put up or shut up time. And he goes straight after Naito. DDT on the apron, and a DDT on a tornado DDT on the floor. Like, lots of great stuff by Shota to kick this off. Aggressive, hard. Naito finally starts getting his neck breakers in. He does a standing neck breaker on the apron and a draping one on the floor, and then a standing neck breaker on the floor. So I'm into this. This is like, okay, this is breaking the formula. This is fun. Another one in the ring after Shota Umino barely makes it in for beating the 20 count. Umino lands a fisherman's buster and an exploder suplex. Naito wraps him up in the leg full Nelson. Short arm elbows by Naito as Shota Umino tries to fire back up. He does fight back, does a driver on Naito. Naito fights back with a brain buster. Fisherman's driver by Shota Umino. I don't know why they call this. Why are they calling this a fisherman's death rider? That's annoying. I just death rider. Don't. I hate the variants. I hate these like subtle variants. It's like Hiroshi Tanahashi with all of his time bombs. He's got like 9 time bombs, right? No, he's got 3, but it feels like 9. Well, what is he? He's got the time bomb. He's got the time bomb 1.5, right? And he's got the time bomb 2.0. Isn't that right? Something like that. Those are the 3 he has, right? And then the variants are just so. The differences between the variants are so minimal. Anyway, Blaze Blade by Umino follows it up with the Death Rider, but Naito kicks out. In and out of moves until Naito rolls up Shota Umino for the win. And we did get some Destino attempts in here as well, and a little bit of a sloppy move. Look, this was a very good match between these two. At some point we're gonna have to stop talking about the terrible match that they had. Was it last year? Terrible match that they had together, and if they keep going like this, that like eventually things will let go. Good fire here by Umino, which really drove home the idea that we're in the midst of that we're in the midst of the squeeze of the tournament, and he's got to get all the points he can. It didn't quite work out. Naito was just too wily, got one over him on this end, but couldn't put him away with the finisher, couldn't put him away with all the usual offense. He had to look for an opening and took it. So that's a good little story here. I thought Naito looked fine here. Of course, it's Korakuen Hall. This is again, Naito picking his spots as to where he's going to put in the effort. He's in Korakuen Hall. It's a packed house. He knows what's up. And Umino probably does too, but compounded with the story, this all worked. I gave this a 3.5 star. Oh, by the way, I did not rate Zack Sabre Jr. and Evil. You don't rate 19-minute matches. What do we do? 19-second matches. You rate 19-minute matches. And finally, we have ourselves the main event where Sanada defeated Shingo Takagi. Great main event. We're not gonna beat around the bush on this one. This was a great main event. They got a feeling out period, and then Shingo Takagi does a fireman's carry gutbuster, and he takes it to the floor. Sanada takes it to the floor, I should say, but gets a snap suplex on the floor for his trouble. Back in the ring, Sanada does the leapfrogs and dropkick combo, does the plancha afterwards to get to the floor again. Shingo Takagi fights back with the DDT. Magic Screw by Sanada and a TKO. Sanada avoids the moonsault, but eats, not Sanada, but Shingo avoids the moonsault, but eats a Shining Wizard after that. Sanada avoids a Dragon Screw and instead lands a Shining Wizard. Moonsault connects then as well. Death Valley Driver by Shingo. Superplex as well. Made in Japan for a close near fall. And things are really heating up at this point. And this final act, this final third of this match just becomes absolutely incredible. Everything fires up, you know, they start striking each other. They're doing near falls. I'm doing this with my, with my fists on my head. Going, oh, okay, we're into something. I don't know if these guys watched Goto and Takeshita from 2 nights ago. And they were like, yeah, we could do this. We could do that. I don't know if they but I kind of hope so. And it kind of ties in with what I was saying on that day's daily recap, where, you'd have these guys have these extraordinary matches, people popping and they go backstage, puff chest out, and looking at everyone else, in the locker room going, all right, y'all do better, because it's a competitive locker room. All locker rooms should be competitive. So why wouldn't Shingo and Sanada look at that and go like, yeah, you know what? We could turn it up too. And boy, holy smokes, like the build to this finish was tremendous. Just everything throughout this match. And when you look back at it, it's like everything was so perfectly put together to get to this point here, where when they start bombing each other, when they start, hitting the near falls, just trying to get those sweet 2 points, everything just explodes and comes together, and you're like, this is great. This is storytelling. Like, this is in-ring storytelling, and told with such passion and intensity. You got Sanada, God's sake. Get me excited for a Sanada match. Pumping Bomber lands as they're kicking out of stuff, kicking out of Shining Wizards and whatnot. But Shingo lands the pumping Bomber, but Sanada hits the deadfall for the win. And what made this even better is that because of how the standings are set right now, it could legitimately have gone either way. Like, you literally here could say, my favorite is Shingo or Sanada, and I hope they win. They have a good chance of winning it. Like, it was one of these matches that, and especially considering the standings and whatnot that you could look at and say, hey, this could go either way. And so, the end result is that it keeps you on your toes till the very end, and I was so stoked about it. What a tremendous main event. And as far as the star rating goes, I don't know. Like, I'm talking about it now. Like, I am edging between 4.25 and 4.5. Did I like this as much as Goto and Takeshita? And I think I did, which would make it a 4.5 star match, right? Am I gonna cower at 4.25? Was this okay? Let's go ahead. 4.5. You're seeing it live here. 4.5. This match ruled. We're getting the G1 matches in this final stretch of the tournament. We're getting matches that feel like G1 matches. And look at the guys who are doing it. Shingo, neither of those guys were part of the great era of G1s, right? That would be guys like Tanahashi, like Ishii. Well, Naito was there, but Goto was there as well. But these are the guys, Shibata, these are all guys who were part of that great era of the G1. but they were close enough to that generation to, even though they didn't have the impact in it, that I guess they knew, they saw, they felt what it represented. This felt like a G1 show, capped off with the G1 match. I have no complaints for this show. So if I would watch the show, but if you're strapped for time, so on and so forth, then Shingo and Sanada is absolutely worth your time. Absolutely 100%. Go out of your way to see it. I thought it was really good. I thought it was very, very, very good. Super strong main event. There you go. Right into the recommendations, which leads us to the standings for today, where we're at today. So we've already talked about it. Zack Sabre Jr. and Evil are up there at 10 points apiece. Zack Sabre Jr. is pretty much leading the pack. He's in the top spot, and Evil is in second place because Zack Sabre Jr. has the tiebreaker over Evil. Tetsuya Naito and Sanada. We could do that same exercise with Tetsuya Naito and Sanada. Let's take a look here. Yeah, Naito has the tiebreaker on Sanada, so Naito is in third place. Sanada is in fourth. Then we get the mishmash for 6 points with Gabe Kidd, Shota Umino, Shingo Takagi, Great Okan, and Jake Lee. And Callum Newman is bottoming out at 4. He's done. His tournament is over. So, you know what? We could even gray him out. We'll do that live. There we go. He's done. I mean, I was sort of pondering, looking over looking over Block A, which is much less. I mean, it's still contested, but not on the same level as Block B is, where Block B is just like, right now, it is more than anyone's ball game, right? But I was looking over to see if there's anyone else here that maybe we could soft eliminate. Maybe there's someone here that, that even though has the possibilities of going forward, maybe they're absolutely, there's a couple of roadblocks in here that would keep them from doing so. I think that, look, I kind of feel like Zack Sabre Jr. and Evil will be somehow fighting in the playoffs. That I think is something because of the result of their match tonight. We talked about it, but I feel that's a thing that has a very high chance of happening. Evil has Shingo and Shota Umino left. So, let's say you don't want to go down that route. It is possible to envision that Evil is going to lose his next 2 matches as well. Get Shingo up at 8 and get Umino. Let him have a win here, because at the same time, Shota and Evil do have a history, right? So, and you see, look, on night 13, which is going to be on August 8th, Shingo and Evil are the main event. So that to me is significant. And Zack Sabre Jr. and Gabe Kidd are co-main events. Now, of course, the last night of A block action on August 12th, the order isn't out yet. That would be probably the biggest giveaway. So we don't know what the order is for the last night of A block action, but I think this is pretty clear as to where we're going with this. We're going to have, Shingo and Evil is going to be a very important match, because if Shingo wins, he stays alive. He will probably be eliminated if Evil loses, or he'll be very much up there. We'd have to see what the other results look like, but there's a very fair chance Shingo's going to be eliminated, and there's a very fair chance that Gabe Kidd will also be eliminated if he loses to Zack Sabre Jr. It's going to be a question of who's going to be at the top of the block and is going to get the bye for the playoffs for A block. That's essentially the question that we're going to be asking ourselves. What about Naito? Well, Naito has Great O'Khan and Callum Newman left, and the Callum Newman match is happening on night 13. It's the opener. So I mean, Naito is going to be winning that, and there's a very fair chance that he's going to be winning his match against Great O'Khan as well. So there's a very fair chance that our boy Naito is going to be ending the tournament with 12 points. It'll be very interesting to see then what happens with the Evil and Zack Sabre Jr. matches on the 13th, because they both have the possibility of it's possible for both to lose these matches, just like it's very likely that they can win them too. But I think out of those guys, I think there's going to be two. I think one of them is going to win their last two matches. And if you were to ask me, it will probably be Zack Sabre Jr. Because Zack has the more plausible outcome here, where he's going to be fighting Gabe Kidd, which seems like a layup win, and Sonata, which, you know, I think they're giving the little push for Sonata towards the end, but he'll probably finish with 10 points. Like, I don't see him going forward. So I think you're going to have a clear winner in Zack Sabre Jr. at 14, and then you'll have Evil and Naito. Probably, this would be my guess, Evil and Naito probably rounding out at 12, and then it doesn't really matter who has the tiebreaker over who in this circumstance. And then from because it'll be clear those will be the two guys moving on to the first playoff match. And then after that, you'll have everyone else sort of rounding things out. You know, you'll have people at 10. Like, I think Sonata will finish at 10. There's a good chance Shingo could finish it. What is Shingo's? What does he look like? Evil and Jake Lee. Yeah, no, I don't think Shingo's gonna finish. Well, he might. He might get the. He might be the guy who beats Evil, and he might beat Lee, but it'll be too little, too late. It's going to be a very interesting. It's going to be a very interesting night 13 on that front. You know, one of the things that I really liked, that we had talked about on the preview show and everything leading up to the G1, we had talked about how it'll be nice to not have any nights off during this tournament, right? With, all the usual suspects. We don't have to rehash them. But with the usual suspects all gone, it'll be nice to not have some, nights off or goofy matches or things that just, stink because the guys aren't putting in the work. But here's something that I really liked in this tournament, in this setup this year, is that everything is so volatile. Instead of being, instead of having your clear-cut winners, instead of having, people running away from the start with, they're on an undefeated streak, like Sonata in his block last year. And, it's keeping us on our toes. And so you don't feel like there are dead matches, But by dead matches, I mean matches that early on in the tournament don't have an impact, or, early on, Usually you'll have matches where it's like, well, this match is going to happen, but it doesn't matter. We're going to have very few of those, because everything in Block A and Block B, but especially Block B, everything everyone is so within reach of each other that every match is going to matter till the very end, or close to the very end. As opposed to having these matches where it's like, oh, well, these two guys were eliminated, on night 8, and they're having a match on night 10, and then they're, it's like, none of this matters, So there's no dead matches, and Callum Newman, right now, the only guy who's eliminated, he's got proof to the point here. He's got Naito and Gabe Kidd left. And, the Naito match is significant Like, it's not too. The Naito match is significant, and depending on what happens on night 13, the kid match may still have implications. It also has the potential to be a dead match, you know, where Kid would need to defeat Callum Newman, and Callum Newman could play spoiler, or it could just be both guys are eliminated and they're just going to beat the piss out of each other. Don't forget, it's going to be the opener. It's going to be the opener of the last night of A Block. Whatever match Callum Newman is in is going to be the opener. And I think that the fact that he's fighting Jake Lee, right? He's not Jake Lee, Gabe Kidd, on the last night of A Block action. I think that's significant. I think that should tell you what's going to happen anyway. So interesting stuff. I don't think we can force anyone out of the tournament just yet, but night 13 is going to be very interesting. Very, very interesting. So we are going to see each other again tomorrow for the second night of this tour in Cork and Hall. And what we have waiting for us is Bolton Oleg versus Jeff Cobb in the opener. Then El Fantasmo versus Konosuke Takeshita. I wouldn't be surprised if ELP gets squeezes one out here. And he's, you know I've been very hard on him with the depression stuff and so on and so forth, but you know, I've always praised his work. He's been having good matches, and I think he just might show up with Takeshita here. And is he going to be the first guy to be eliminated from B Block? No, it'll probably be Bolton. It'll probably be Bolton who's going to get eliminated. But Yota Tsuji will be taking on Hinare. That should be a lot of fun. Yuya Uemura versus Ren Narita. Big test for Uemura here in this semi-main event. Can the Ren Narita nonsense be carried to a match that people will be into? Is this not, well, the show is sold out, so everything's fine, but it's interesting nonetheless. It's interesting. And the main event is Hiroki Goto versus David Finlay, and a lot of believers in Hiroki Goto. I've been hearing a lot of chatter for Hiroki Goto getting the big win, right? The argument goes as follows. Quiet, solid, consistent wrestler, a vestige of the great G1s of the past. He has won the G1. He has won the New Japan Cup. He's won World Tag League. Like, he's won all of the heavyweight tournaments in one form or another. Sometimes multiple times. But he's never held like the big title. With all of the story that they established during the New Japan Cup when he subbed for Dave Finlay, about this might being his last opportunity, making a tie-in with his deceased father, how he would have liked to bring the cup to the grave. That didn't happen and was very heartbreaking, and some people were getting emotionally invested in this. This could be a very easy layup for a Wrestle Kingdom main event to add some drama to it, some good old-fashioned storytelling of the guy who has had this great career, this sneaky great career in New Japan. Because you'll never hear people praise Hiroki Goto like they do Tanahashi, Okada, Ospreay, Naito, or even like Tomohiro Ishii, or even Katsuyori Shibata. It's, Goto is always like at the bottom of that field. And yet when you look at his accomplishments in kayfabe, of course, it's very impressive. But this is a guy who has always delivered the goods. And he delivered the goods in the New Japan Cup finals against Tsuji. And he more than delivered the goods with Takeshita a couple of nights ago. And he's been solid throughout the tournament. And you put all these stories together, like it's the Cinderella story, etc., etc. And I heard Joe Lanza make a tremendous point on top of all of that, saying, and this makes tons of sense to me, this would be a good way to get the title onto one of the new guys afterwards without burning that new guy's match against Naito, where Naito then comes after the new guy, and then you have a fresh, super interesting main event because Naito drops the title to Goto. Goto holds on to the title, for a couple of months, and he drops it to Yota Tsuji. And then it keeps Yota Tsuji and Naito for the title super fresh. That to me makes a shitload of sense. I think there's something to that. I'm not going to get my hopes up, but it makes a lot of sense. But let's get to it. Let's start talking about tonight's show, August 7, 2024, the second night of the Korakuen shows. We knew this was a sellout, right? So 1,500 is what 1,503 is what's reported. So it's essentially the same thing back to back. Man, these Korakuen shows though, they're special, aren't they? The atmosphere, the crowd, the wrestlers getting a little more into it. The past two nights 11, night 12, are probably my favorites since night 1. Like overall. These were tremendous nights of pro wrestling. This does not disappoint either. And just as a comparative, as opposed to last year in the G1 Climax 33 on night 12, which was at the Hiroshima Sun Plaza, 2,006 people were there for a show that was main evented by Shingo Takagi and Dave Finlay. And in the co-main event, you had Tetsuya Naito versus Zack Sabre Jr. So that's nonetheless a pretty stacked finale those were the C and D block matches that wrapped up that night. I mean, look, that was a good main event, and something tells me, if there was a possibility here to draw more. Well, of course, like if it was sold out, then you do have the possibility to draw more. That's the idea. But nonetheless, New Japan has to be happy with how this is going. How this G1 has been going as far as attendance goes. Like it hasn't been they haven't been doorbusters. Is doorbusters the right word here? Maybe blockbusters is what I was looking more to say. So, they haven't been tearing down the house is what I'm trying to say. And they haven't been reversing the fortunes either as far as attendance goes. But, I'll be curious to look at the graphs towards the end of at the end of the tournament. But I have a pretty good feeling that, everything was sort of a little bit on the rise. I think there's a positive year over year in regards to the G1 Climax 34. So that's good news. The results, why don't we go with that? Jeff Cobb defeated Bolton Oleg. Konosuke Takeshita defeated El Phantasmo. Yota Tsuji got the best of Henare. Ren Narita defeated Yuya Umera. And in the main event, Hiroki Goto back on his thing, defeated David Finlay. Let's go right ahead. Jeff Cobb defeating Bolton Oleg. I thought this rocked. This was tremendous. This is probably my favorite G1 opener of the entire tournament. The Haas fight, and that, whatever you wanted out of this Haas fight, whatever you thought it was going to give you, it gave you exactly that. I feel, the feeling out period is, is tests of strength. and early on, Oleg is, he's gut wrenching. He does a gut wrench suplex on Jeff Cobb, and that's tremendous. And they're just, beating each other up, dropping big moves. Jeff Cobb does the gut wrench swing that Oleg usually does, but Oleg shortly thereafter does it after a big German suplex as well. A really, really good German suplex on top of that. Some slams by Cobb, standing moonsault. Oleg avoids the Tour of the Islands, lands the kamikaze, but Cobb kicks out. He fights back a little bit and then lands the Tour of the Islands proper. I gave this 3.5 stars. I thought this was a tremendous way to kick off the night with these two big boys going right at it. I thought it was tremendous. Big hoss battle. And thanks to this, Jeff Cobb now sits atop Block B with 10 points, all by himself. And Oleg is at the bottom with 4. He hasn't budged. And I am considering that Boltin Oleg is eliminated from the tournament. We'll talk about it when we get to the standings. But if you ask me, even though there is mathematically a possibility, I'm going to soft eliminate Oleg, Boltin Oleg, and I don't think that's a I don't think that's much of a stretch. I don't think I'm like reinventing things here, but we'll talk about it when we get to the standings part. But great match to kick it off. And then Kinesuke Takeshita defeated El Fantasmo. I saw so much weird discourse around this match. I saw so much bizarre discourse around this match. Somehow saying that, they did too much in this match, that it was and because they did too much, this was probably an audition for El Fantasmo, auditioning for Tony Khan. Wrestling fans are very strange sometimes. I did not think they did too much in this match. I thought this match was, first of all, it's one of the best matches of the tournament. I'm sort of wondering if it's my new favorite, just eking out Takeshita and Goto. I'm wondering if but this match was tremendous. Look, the story of this match, in case you're wondering why they did too much, is that El Fantasmo knows his back is against the wall here, and he needs to start scoring some points. He's got 3 matches left, including this one, and he just has to score some points to remain in the conversation. Otherwise, he's gonna disappear. And that's the feeling that he got, that he delivered, I should say, going into this fight, where it was like, okay, shakes Takeshita's hand to start, but it's like, let's go, and this is the El Fantasmo that I like, I love, that I always know is in there, because he's able to have these high energy, high octane, meaningful matches. And there's a lot of times he sort of coasts through stuff, but here there was no coasting. Here there was a true to form story to tell, and with a fervor and a passion that I really wished he would just pop, he'd let shine through just at least once or twice in other matches of the tournament. Not just laying all out on the line when your back is against the wall and you're like a caged animal. It's like, no. I was missing this and this is why I'm still a believer in El Fantasmo as being a top guy, because he can do it. He can absolutely keep up with the likes of Konosuke Takeshita, which everyone kind of agrees. A lot of people agree. Most people agree. Maybe we'll put it like that. That he's one of the best wrestlers on the planet right now. So, they're straight up, like, they're going after each other and whatnot, and they're, Takeshita, is on the floor. ELP dives, and the dive, knocks Takeshita over the railing. And then ELP hits the top turnbuckle and does an Orihara moonsault all the way over the rail. You know how he usually does like the splash, like the Thunder Kiss 86ers? Now he does the friggin' moonsault from the top rope all the way into the audience. Fantastic stuff. Like, into the audience. They had to move people away. Like, that was great stuff. Then back in the ring, he does the springboard senton lion salt combination. Blue Thunder Bomb by Takeshita, and he got a couple of extra rotations on this one. These guys were feeling it. This was really good. A Frankensteiner by ELP, followed by the Thunder Kiss 86, and a Poison Rana. He hits the CR2, but Takeshita kicks out. Takeshita drops ELP with the Bastard Driver off the apron through a table. That's right. That's the spot. This is the thing I think that a lot of people are saying, oh, they did too much. It's like, this is like, there was a table pulled out from the previous evening, from last night, where that still had the dents in it from being thrown around in the Gabe Kidd Jake Lee match, and the Bastard Driver just goes right through the table in a terrific spot, an absolutely terrific spot. And people do cool moves. They do such good stuff. Why are we saying they're doing too much? Everything in this match is connecting. All throughout the match up until this point, we've got ELP doing everything he can to score some points. Takeshita doing his offense, maybe doesn't feel it's quite as effective, and he's like, "Look, this guy's not gonna break easy. So I got to do what I can." And terrific visual of ELP's back split open. Well, split open. He gets busted open off of the move. He's bleeding a lot. And he struggles to get back in. He's met with a forearm by Takeshita. And then ELP lands a sudden death. Crowd is on their feet. They're going nuts for this. They're going completely bonkers for this. They are. Korakuen is entirely into it. And I would even say that they're backing ELP up. They want ELP to win. They love the ELP. They love the El Fantasmo in Japan. They really do. If you want a surefire babyface Gedo, don't look too far. And ELP does a victory roll, okay? And Takeshita reverses through it and right into the wheelbarrow German. Like, there's no way they're doing too much. This is great stuff. And impressive stuff on top of that. Crowd is on fire when ELP kicks out of the bridge, and he does his best, man. He valiantly fights back, but the Raging Fire does it, man. Takeshita gets the win. Oh, this is such a good one. Such a great match. It had passion and stakes, and it felt, once again, like a G1 match. It felt like it. This was a tremendous performance. Tremendous athleticism. I don't think anyone did too much here, I think everything connected and made sense. If they do one spot through a table and you say it's too much, I don't know what to tell you. Because everything made sense in the match from top to bottom. And there were some great exchanges. People get mad when wrestlers do moves now. Does everyone want wrestlers to just slap on a headlock now? Is that what we want? Is this what we want out of wrestling? Got to slow things down? Hell no, man. Big time moves, a huge crescendo. This rocked. And Corkin was there the whole time. And it's a bummer because ELP's tournament is probably done as well. We'll talk about that when we get to the standings. But what a match. And Takeshita involved once for the second time in one of the best matches of the tournament. I mean, here's the thing, talking about ELP auditioning for Tony Khan. How about Tony Khan looking at this and realizing, I should be doing more with this Takeshita guy, shouldn't I? I shouldn't just have him be, a guy who can work with top guys but never be a top guy, right? Maybe, Tony. How about that? Just absolutely tremendous stuff. 4.5 stars once again. Yota Tsuji, defeated Hinare next. I thought this was very good, and I feel like I'm the high man on this, but I thought this was very, very good. Now the feeling out period with tests of strength, we get an early disaster kick by Hinare with the senton, and Tsuji is doing his combination stomps, and he's doing tornillos, and he does an avalanche Samoan drop. Was it him or was it him? Well, I just have avalanche Samoan drop here and I didn't write who did it. That's kind of dumb on my part, right? Hinare lands a berserker bomb. They trade blows. Yota Tsuji lays him out with a lariat. They fire up. There's a flurry of strikes by Hinare, followed by a rampage. Headbutts by both, and we get ourselves a Gene Blaster for the big finish here by Tsuji. I give this 3 3/4 stars. I thought this was really a good, strong fight between two big boys. Now, the issue that I do have, though, is that I'm coming off of the previous match, and I'm like, well, where's the fire here in Yota Tsuji? And again, like, I understand what they want to do with Yota Tsuji. Like, commentary puts over quite often, like, very confident, very self-centered on what he does. And, it's his, he puts himself before anyone else. And it's okay, cool, that's fine. So he's, he feels he's above everyone. But that doesn't mean that he can't show any passion ever. And I haven't seen the spark in Yota Tsuji this tournament so far, but we're getting really close to the finish here, that I've seen in El Fantasmo, that I've seen in Hiroki Goto, or Konosuke Takeshita, and he doesn't even go there, or Gabe Kidd for that matter, like all these people at some point during this tournament were just like flickers of light. And we're like, this is tremendous, Where's the big Yota Tsuji moment where's the big Yota Tsuji moment where he's gonna tear down the house? Because I still firmly believe, and again, this is not a hot take because many people feel the same way. He's fine. This guy's almost a made man in this company. Because of his size, his presence, crowd connection, and he's good. But where's the second gear? Where's the second gear? And I don't see it. or at least I didn't see it in this tournament. But nonetheless, he is now at 8 points. Henare stays at 6. Ren Narita defeated Yuya Uemura. I don't have much to say about this. I didn't care much for this match. I thought it was a mediocre match overall. Lots of distractions. Yoshinobu Kanemaru's hanging around. He's trying to get stuff done, and I did like, and he's right. Chris Charlton was comparing that diving crossbody that Uemura did over the to the floor. He compared it to Mayu Iwatani, because Mayu's thing is that she's just clumsy. Sometimes does things that look a little unpolished because maybe that's part of her charm. And Yuya's crossbody was like, whoa, he's like, ah! It looked like, I was launching myself at someone through the air. I thought that was funny. Yeah, ref distraction and low blow, and Narita gets the win with the X Factor. I gave this 2 3/4 stars. Ren Narita now has 8 points. Yuya still at 6. I think we're done with Yuta for victories and stuff, right? I think this is it, right? I think we adequately called this one. Yeah. I think we're good. He might win another match, but he's not going to be in the conversation for this for the playoffs. I do not think. And then the main event, excuse me, Hiroki Goto defeated Dave Finlay. And there's another great one. I gave this match 4 stars. Let's just get it out of the way right now. I thought it was another tremendous performance by Hiroki Goto. David Finlay was his perfect foil in this one here. Just playing your straight up standard heel. Having some great heat segments. Ruining the hope spots. You know the drill. He being Finlay, he's even removing the padding from the floor. Of course, it turns against him, but, Goto has to pull out a Nushigoroshi to get in control. He does a solo shoto, the finishing move that he does with Yoshihashi and their tag team. Even gives old Yoshihashi the wink and the gun. Well, he didn't give him the gun. But he sort of, how you doing, pal? Finlay does the into oblivion, a buckle bomb and a power bomb into the corner as well. Goto pulls the Shotenkai to a rousing cheer from the crowd. People love that move. They still love the Shotenkai. I don't know why he should finish a match with the Shotenkai at some point. Just love it. And then Chris Charlton loves it. He's always loved it. Even when Kevin Kelly was still the commentator, Chris Charlton they'd both lose their mind. Gedo tries to distract, the Shillelagh gets involved, but it doesn't become a factor. Goto eventually gets it and tosses it away. He blocks Finlay's finisher, and Finlay struggles to avoid the GTR. Like he's in the position, and Goto is trying to hammerlock him, right? And Finlay is fighting back. I like that stuff. He's just like, no, don't do this. But he gets the best of him and does the GTR for the win. And Corkin just loses its fucking mind again. And they just go completely bonkers for the win. I've worked myself into a shoot now. We talked about it last episode, but I have jumped on this. I have jumped on this train. We're going down the Goto. We're going down the Goto Railroad, all the way to Wrestle Kingdom. I think it makes terrible amounts of sense. I think the amount of babyface heat he has right now is amazing. Everyone is in. Hell, man, he leaves the ring and he's holding up little girls up in his arm, little kids, cheering. I'm like, Jesus Christ. There we go. Like he's kissing babies. Let's go. Babyface. Look, this is exactly what they teased for the New Japan Cup. Remember, this is exactly what they teased. Same type of energy, same type of vibe. And they went into it particularly hard when Finley got injured out. So that's exactly what they were leaning into. It's just a continuation of that story. Wouldn't it be a perfect story to tell than to wrap it up at Wrestle Kingdom in January with him defeating Tetsuya Naito and getting the prize that has always eluded him? Because like we mentioned last time, he's won everything in New Japan. He's won all the tournaments. Well, maybe not Best of Super Juniors or, Super Junior Tag League. But I feel the reasons for those are obvious. But everything else, he's won. He's a G1 winner, a New Japan Cup winner, World Tag League. He's held the Never title multiple times. Like, what's left? There's one thing that's eluding him. It's such a great story. It would be tremendous. And at this point, I would have no doubt that this match would draw. I have no doubt in my mind. Let's say Yota Tsuji won the tournament, okay? Let's say Yota Tsuji's going to the Dome. I'd be like, oh, interesting little gamble here. I'd be for it, don't get me wrong. But how they've been handling Goto and the crowd reactions, I'd be staying up all night. If I'm Geto and I'm getting Dick Togo and Jado around the table, and I'm like, and he's like, and then he goes, we gotta reset everything. We gotta reset everything the last few nights because this Goto thing is hot, baby. We gotta something like that. And then he convenes he brings in the guy who was supposed to win. He being Goto, and he's like, look, change of plans, man. We're going with this. And the other guy will throw a fit, but Geto's like, sorry. Like, we got to go with the crowd on this one. We're trying to make money here, pal. There's more money to draw in Hiroki Goto at this point than there is any of the young guys. Right now, there's more money in Hiroki Goto than in Yota Tsuji, Yuya Uemura, Shota Umino, Ren Narita, Callum Newman, Bolton Oleg, all of them combined. I've worked myself into a shoot on this one. This is what I want to see happen now. I'm so stoked about it. Like, what a compelling final for the G1. Because you would always still have that doubt. Where you're wondering, are they really going to go through with it? Are they really going to? They're not going to do it, are they? They're not going to have Goto win the G1 this year, right? No, they can't. It doesn't make sense. And yet, they just might do it. The intrigue around it just comes naturally. The final itself would be buzzworthy. Tremendous. Great main event. Well done. Well played by Finley. Finley continues to have a terrific streak of matches. Just great stuff. It continued here. Perfect foil for Goto. 4 stars. Goto, rising from the ashes, has 8 points. Finley stays at 8. Let's talk about, the recommendations I think are clear. They're very clear. Like, the best match of the show is one of the best matches of the tournament. Konosuke Takeshita defeating El Phantasmo. Like, that's one you absolutely make time for. You go out of your way to watch it. I would recommend David Finley and Hiroki Goto as well. I think it was a tremendous main event. Not quite as good as Phantasmo Takeshita, but we're splitting hairs here. And look, but then again, if you have like 90 minutes to 2 hours to just plop down and watch only the block matches, you're gonna enjoy it. You're gonna be like, man, all of this is great. All of this is so good. Jeff Cobb and Bolton was tremendous. Like, really, the low point is Yumera and Narita. I was going to say Naruto for some reason. That would be infinitely cooler, but you can just skip that if you want. You can just go right over it and never mind. So those are my recommendations. As far as the standings go, well, Jeff Cobb is at the top with 10 points. Around the 8th blob, we've got David Finlay, Konosuke Takeshita, Ren Narita, Yota Tsuji, and Hiroki Goto. So all of these boys have 8. Yuya Uemura and Hinare are at 6. And Bolton Oleg and El Phantasmo are rounding up the bottom at 4. Now, we mentioned earlier that we mentioned earlier that I think that we should be soft eliminating El Phantasmo from the tournament, and here's why. His 2 final matches are 2 of the top guys in the block, two favorites to move on to the playoffs, and in some people's cases, these are at least one of these 2 guys is one of their favorites to win the whole thing. Dave Finlay and Hiroki Goto. I don't see him winning both, unless we want to completely spoil, unless Gedo is ready to completely swerve us, and knock Finlay out of contention and Goto out of contention, which I think would be a mistake at this point, unless he had drawn up these plans like in May and it's like, I'm sticking to these plans, nothing, we're not changing. But I really, like, I would pivot so incredibly hard. I would pivot so hard. So I don't see him winning. I really, really don't. I could see him spoiling maybe for one of these 2 guys, maybe Finlay or maybe Goto, but the bar's too high at this point. Goto has morphed into a guy in this tournament, and Finlay is a guy in Geto's kayfabe. So, and if he beats both, well, he has, Takeshita. Look, Cobb has the tiebreaker over him, right? Takeshita has a tiebreaker over him as well. And he does have tiebreakers over Yota Tsuji and Uemura. But I don't think he's going, Uemura, I don't think is going to be a factor. Tsuji, maybe. And that's weird, right? Isn't this weird? Isn't it odd that I'm sitting here going, Tsuji maybe might be, when this was the block that was supposed to be all about, not the block, but the G1 that was supposed to be about the young guys, right? Could you do a playoffs where it's Jeff Cobb, Dave Finlay, and Hiroki Goto exiting the block to go to the playoffs? Could you, in your right mind, do that? That'd be weird, right? In this G1 that started with, under the banner of rejuvenation, right? Of, the new generation coming forward. The Hiroshi Tanahashi's 10-point plan. One of them being about, putting new guys in bigger spots. So, yeah, the more I'm thinking about it right now, Cobb, Finlay, Goto, all in the final, it doesn't make sense. at least one of these guys has to go. At least one of these guys has to go. And I mean, it could be Jeff Cobb. Like if Cobb loses his next two, and Finley and Goto win their next two, that's fine. But it's not. There's no point there's no nonsense on the point differential stuff. You know, they're not going to do wackadoo scenarios to finish. They never. They're not going to do that. Where it's like, oh, but when you look at the elimination, they're going to have some clear-cut winners to move on to the playoffs. They don't want you at the end. They don't want at the end of the last night of block action to have someone pull up a graph on TV and start explaining the points distribution to show who has the tiebreaker on who. That's for us nerds. But they're not going to do that. They won't. I'm convinced they won't. So all that being said, I'm soft eliminating El Fantasmo because I think the hill is too tall to climb at this point, and I don't think it's realistic. And Goto, I'm sorry, but Goto has a significant chance of qualifying. He really, really does. Look, his last two matches are against Henare and Fantasmo, as we mentioned. Two very plausible victories for him. Like these are two absolutely plausible people he could defeat. And the only person who is in the blob of 8 right now, outside of who are that he's fought, he's not even in the blob of 8. The only guy who is truly in contention right now for the playoffs, Jeff Cobb, has the tiebreaker over Goto. Otherwise, Goto has the tiebreaker over Finley. He's got it over Bolton, who's not an issue, over Takeshita, over Tsuji. Narita has the tiebreaker. That could be a spoiler. You could go for Heat here, sure. Yumera has the tiebreaker over Goto. Yumera's not going to be a factor. I sincerely believe that. Moving on, I don't think he's going to be he's had his shine in the tournament. Now we're focusing on the winners, and he's not going to be in that circle towards the end. Goto has a legitimate shot at the very least making it to the playoffs, something that no one believed would be the thing. Everyone sort of thought that he was just going to be, the gatekeeper, the Tomohiro Ishii type. He's just going to get in there and beat the piss out of people and then lose and rinse and repeat. But how could you not be jacked for him after that show in Korakuen? How could you not be jacked? So again, look, still a lot of people in contention mathematically. 8 people. Jeff Cobb currently at the top. Takeshita holds a tiebreaker over him. So does Ren Narita. Who has he got left? Finley and Tsuji. So those are significant matches that are left for these top spots here. It's still very wild, man. It's still so very wild. We're not done. We're not done, and we cannot be eliminating people just yet. Not when not when 3 people advance. You just can't. I don't even think Cobb is a lock. See, there's that opposite too, where it's like, who's a lock? I don't know. There's still too much uncertainty, because even if Cobb lost his last 2 and was at 10 points, well, Warren, he's probably going to go forward, right? Well, what happens if Finley and Goto win their next 2? Or, and Tsuji, Yota Tsuji. He's got Cobb and Umera. He's got Cobb and Umera left. I mean, you see what I mean? Like, things are so volatile still. Exciting stuff. It's good stuff. Keeps you guessing. Keeps you on your toes. The matches still feel meaningful. I like it. So we are going to take a look at what's coming up next, which is tomorrow, the last day in this 3-day stretch. We've left Korakuen Hall and we are heading to the Yokohama Budokan in Kanagawa for the second to last night of A block action. Tetsuya Naito versus Callum Newman in the opener. There's no way Naito's losing this. If he loses it, I'll be shocked, but there's no way he's losing this. Sonata versus the Great Okan. I've been enjoying Great Okan's tournament so far. I think he's been tremendous. Is he going to get a good... He seems to be getting a little come from behind pushy push here. I don't know. Let's go. Let's go. If he gets a win and we can keep Sonata out of the conversation, that, for the playoffs, that's fine too. Shota Umino versus Jake Lee. As much as Jake Lee's couple of last matches have been improvements on his first few, this one has the potential to go down the drain. Because you have Jake Lee on one hand, and it'll depend it'll depend on what mood Shota Umino wakes up in tomorrow morning. That's all. That's it's going to be dependent on. Semi-main event is going to be Zack Sabre Jr. versus Gabe Kidd. I'm very much looking forward to that. That should be a fun time. And Shingo Takagi versus Evil in the main event. That should not probably be a fun time. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Evil gets a win back and he goes up to 12. I kind of feel like Gabe Kidd needs to stay in the conversation here. I wouldn't be surprised if he got the win over Zack Sabre Jr. Zack stays at 10. We will probably be, next time we speak, we will probably have a really good idea as to where this is going for Block A. And we'll probably be eliminating a bunch of people and talking a little more potential scenarios for the big finish. We're doing it. It's the G1 Climax 34, night 13, or day 13. I've been flip-flopping between that nomenclature throughout this, all of my daily coverage this year, so who cares? It's the 13th edition. How about that? Of this year's G1. I'm Warren, and I'm stoked. I'm excited. I don't know, man. These past few nights of G1 action have been absolutely great. We got some great matches on top of that, and the trend continues. The trend continued today, and on top of that, an excellent match, which I think right now is the match of the tournament. And we're not done. And it feels like everything's picking up steam. It's as if Korakuen was just like the shot in the arm everyone needed. And now everyone's like, okay, let's go. Imagine if we had got this throughout the entire tournament. I wouldn't have a voice anymore. I'd be done. And I'd sound like a 6-pack a day smoker. Jace. And we're eliminating people. We're getting people off the board. People that Chris Charlton didn't want to tell you on commentary were off the board, but are off the board. And I'm going to give you the truth. Whatever New Japan is trying to obfuscate from you, trying to not tell you that these matches won't matter on night 15, I'm going to tell you. I'm an open book. I got nothing to hide. But look, I mean, thank you again, everyone, for being here. I hope you're Having a great week so far, and I hope you're ready to talk some G1 here. Like the video if you're watching this on YouTube, by the way, and leave a 5-star review of it on Apple Podcasts or a 5-star rating on Spotify on your podcast application of choice. Anything that you can help with on that front is tremendous. Helps keep the podcast growing. But as for this, holy smoke, let's go. Let's do it. August 8th, 2024, from the Yokohama Budokan in Yokohama, Kanagawa, Japan. 2,906 people were, or at least tickets were distributed, but that's the attendance. 2,906 people, which is actually, not bad. That's pretty good. Let's say we do a comparison to last year. How about that? How about we do a comparison to last year? Night 13 was in Osaka at the Edion Arena, 3,150. So that's pretty good. That, a little lower from last year. But again, these last year comparisons are not like perfectly seamless comparisons. We're in different cities, we're in different arenas, different dates, although last year, last year was on the 5th, August 5th. And, so, the comparisons aren't perfect. So the year over year may not be great, but we're still seeing this trend throughout the G1 of New Japan doing better houses overall than last year. How about we compare to the last time New Japan was in the Yokohama Budokan? Well, and let's take a look here. We'll pull it up. G1 Climax 13. That was so they have not been here. Let me get this right. There we go. New Japan has not been at the Yokohama Budokan in 2024. This is their first appearance here. So we have to go back to 2023 for that. Do we go back to 2023 for that? Yep, we're going to World Tag League, which was in November last year, November 23rd. 1,256 people, so a much better crowd than last time. And there was a night of the G1 last year. And night 15 of the Climax 33 was in the Yokohama Budokan. 2,360. So, a notable improvement even from the G1, even though it was a night later, the final night. And look, just for laughs here, we had Evil versus Shingo Takagi and David Finlay versus Eddie Kingston in the main and co-main event spots. So, yeah, and this year, well, an improvement even from the last time they had a G1 show here at the Budokan. And just to give you an example, right? 4 nights ago, Noah kicked off the N1 Victory Tournament, right? Their own version of the G1, right? 949 people in attendance, with Luis Mante versus defeating Kaito Kiyomiya in the main event, and Keno versus Manabu, the refurbished Manabu Soya. We can sit here and try to pick apart, these attendance numbers for New Japan are like, oh yeah, compared to last year and last time they were here and just a couple of nights ago and so on and so forth. But when you look at Noah just 4 nights ago, and in a similar context as far as wrestling tournaments go, doesn't even crack 1,000 people in attendance. And in this case, New Japan was flirting with 3,000. So, and look, Stardom was here as well in May, the Flashing Champions show. 927. Then Big Japan did their Great Voyage in March here as well. 977. No one is cracking 1,000. The Gate of Bayside, a Dragon Gate show. See, that did 2,086. So that's not bad. Luis Mante versus Shun Skywalker was the main event. And the Stardom's New Year show, again, still in the Budokan in early January, didn't even crack 1,000, 960 people. So, I mean, you know, that this continues to emphasize the point that even though, you know, New Japan is not at its peak business-wise, it's still doing better than everyone else in the country. So, yeah, look, nothing but you can only see this as a positive. You can only see this as a positive, I do believe. Let's go with the results of this show. Tetsuya Naito defeated Callum Newman. Great Okan got the best of Sonata in what turns out to be a big result. We're going to talk about that in a bit. Jake Lee defeated Shota Umino. Zack Sabre Jr. defeated Gabe Kidd, and Shingo Takagi got the best of Evil in the main event. So let's start breaking down the show, starting with the opener where Naito defeated Callum Newman. I don't think anyone was surprised here. You know, I think everyone with their head screwed on tight expected it, unless like Gato was ready to do like this incredible swerve, like just completely come out of left field. And like, no, Callum Newman is spoiling Tetsuya Naito's tournament. Where, and we said this from the start. You know, it would have been surprising if Tetsuya Naito, because right now he's in a very good position to move forward. We're going to talk about this when we get to the standings, but it would have been surprising if Naito would not have made it to the playoffs, if only because he is the guy, he is the draw, he's the guy. Like there's arguably no one else on the roster right now who can draw like Tetsuya Naito can. So if only for business reasons, putting together shows where Naito is on it is good. So, you know, that might even be kind of a guarantee that he's going to be till the very, at the very least, till the block finals. At the very least. Or the A block final is what I mean, as opposed to the block finals. And I wouldn't even be surprised if they decided to make him go all the way for that specific reason in and about itself. Now, whether he's capable of doing it or not, is he physically able to keep up with that? That's a whole other discussion that we're not going to get into right now because we've got plenty of other things to talk about. Callum Newman, as we had established, was eliminated 2 nights ago on the previous night of A block action, but you know, I will reiterate, kind of like they were doing on commentary, but I will reiterate what I've been saying is that people have been way too harsh on Callum Newman, 21-year-old kid doing his very first G1, doing every curtain jerker. I don't know what people were expecting out of him. He's in the tournament. He opened up every show. His job was to open up every show, and the openers are not the show stealers in New Japan, and they're not. They can be good little affairs. They can be interesting. They can be solid as hell matches, but they're not the show stealers. And I don't know what people were expecting. And plus, his job was to eat some pins. So I don't know what people were expecting out of Callum Newman, but I think the expectations were too high. I think the associations with Will Ospreay did him more harm than good as far as fan perception goes. But again, look, in this match here, see, he's trying to do Oscutters and it doesn't work. This I feel has also been an undercurrent tale of Callum Newman's trajectory here in regards to being Will Ospreay's protege, right? Because he got choke slammed out of the air by Jake Lee. What was the other one? There was another one where he did a choke slam and it was interrupted out of midair, and here Naito just shoved him out of the way. like everyone's onto it because Will had been cutting Oscutters, right and left. So the Oscutter is not maybe Shingo got beat by it and Shingo put over that, Callum's Oscutter is stronger and whatnot. But everyone is expecting the Oscutter at this point. You can see by the way these things were laid out. So maybe the thing for Callum Newman is to really do let go of the Will Ospreay influence here. And I think that would do him good on multiple levels. That being said, I thought he had good fire in this match. I thought Naito was very sloppy. And it took 2 Destinos to put Callum Newman away. So Naito up 2 more points. He is at 10. Callum Newman still at 4. Then we had the Great O'Khan defeating Sanada in what I consider to be a lovely twist of affairs this late in the game. Let's talk about the match real quick. Great O'Khan, the story of this match is Great O'Khan has Sanada scouted. This was the story here. He's been watching tape. He's been making sure he got everything because look, you know how Sanada does the double leapfrogs into the drop kick? Great O'Khan just completely denied the leapfrogs. Shining Wizard, he ducks. Yeah, there's even later on in the match he catches a Shining Wizard and reverses it into a leg lock or something, right? So also in the match, another part of this story is that Sanada jams his knee doing a move, and Great O'Khan he just goes for it. And boy, does he ever go for it. And he's pulling out submissions and some great groundwork that has been also part of Great O'Khan's aura throughout this entire tournament. Sanada still manages a dropkick and a plancha. Great O'Khan takes him down as he tries a Shining Wizard. That's what I was talking about. I'm going through my notes here. Knee breaker by Great O'Khan. A TKO by Sanada. Sanada, and here's another example. Sanada goes for the bridging pin, when he goes, oh, again, Great O'Khan sees it coming, pushes him back, blocks it. Then we go for German suplex. Sanada gets back up, Shining Wizard. Another Shining Wizard. Goes for the deadfall. It's blocked. And Great O'Khan lands the eliminator for the win. I thought this was a fantastic little match. I gave it 3.5 stars. I gave the opener 3 stars because I really feel like Callum Newman worked really hard in that one. So I was like, okay. Sanada was very sloppy. Not Sanada, Naito was very sloppy. Sanada, though, here I thought was good. I think he did his job well, and Great O'Khan was tremendous. Was very convincing, very energetic, had that spark. And Sanada was trying to fire himself up. He saw that he was out of his comfort zone. And both guys, again, wrestling for these 2 points, for these crucial last minute 2 points to stay in the conversation. It's fantastic. We've been talking about it throughout throughout the daily coverage. Great O'Khan has been absolutely fantastic. He's been phenomenal throughout this entire run. Reignited passion. He's got something cooking. There was something behind his eyes that just made him feel completely different from the Great O'Khan we've been seeing for the past 18 months to 2 years about. Maybe the guy that a lot of people were expecting to see when he made his New Japan debut that was so divisive and controversial to a degree. Mostly divisive, but it did create controversy amongst fans. I'm stretching this out too much. You get the point. I thought this was absolutely tremendous. Absolutely tremendous. And there's a legitimate chance that Great O'Khan might actually make it to the playoffs. We're going to get to that when I swear I can't wait to talk about the standings. I can't wait to talk about the standings. It's tremendous. 3.5 stars for me for this one. Shota Umino versus Jake Lee. Now, would you believe me if I were to sit here and tell you Jake Lee has been having some fantastic matches recently? Because this was another great Jake Lee, I don't want to say great. Great made, words have meaning. This was another very good Jake Lee match. Outside of his, the night one thing and his second match, where we were just sitting here and who is this bozo? Get him off of my New Japan. Now, last couple of matches, there's something he's stringing together. There's something he's getting. There's a little flame going there. I thought this was very good. Look, Shota Umino goes right for him, right? Because this is another match where it's like the points are crucial. Everyone has to stay in the conversation. Everyone wants to work as hard as they can to stay in the conversation, right? And they're fighting on the floor because Shota Umino goes after him really early, but Jake Lee brutalizes him, stays in control, does a Boston Crab, a drop kick by Umino, slingshot DDT, barely even connects by Shota Umino. That was kind of embarrassing. Jake Lee back in control, lands some kicks. There's a strike exchange between the two, an exploder by Umino. Jake Lee gets back up, a German by Jake Lee. Shota Umino gets back up and then lands the rolling elbow. Both guys are down. Everyone's into it, cheering him on. Umino lands the ignition and the cradle DDT, which for some reason they're calling this some Death Rider variant. It's a cradle DDT. Okay, can we just? It's fine. Not everything has to be a variation of the finisher. It's a cradle DDT. It's fine. Back suplex by Jake Lee and a torture rack. Good looking torture rack. I hadn't you look at Jake Lee, tall, gangly, long Jake Lee, with the guy up on his shoulders, you're like, hot damn, that's a nasty looking torture rack. Argentinian backbreaker. Blaze Blade by Shota Umino, who gets fired up. Lands goes for the Death Rider. It's blocked. There's some kicks by Jake Lee. Really exciting final sequence that leads to the face breaker. Believe it or not, folks, sit back in your seats. Get comfy. Make sure you don't fall over. If you're driving, listening to this right now, pull over so that you don't make an accidental, some accidental motions and you ride yourself into a ditch or something. I'm giving this match, which included Jake Lee, 3 3/4 stars. I thought this was tremendous. I thought it was really, really good. And we'll talk about the standings in a bit. But what a turnaround for Jake Lee. And again, I'm not sitting here calling him, the next, he's not the next Misawa here. Don't get me wrong here. We're not, I'm not, and saying, hey, look at Ricky Steamboat go here. No. This is a guy just from the get-go. I was like, who? No, first of all, I'm familiar with his work elsewhere, and bringing him into New Japan in the first couple of matches were such a testament to the apathetic weirdo that he is. It's like, oh, okay, here we go. Who cares? It's just going to be boring Jake Lee matches. But no. Not these past few. Not these past few. The Gabe Kidd one was a lot of fun. I thought this one was even better. And Shota Umino, well, look, folks, for all intents and purposes, Shota Umino's eliminated from the tournament. At 6 points, there's no way he's staying in the conversation. He's gone. He's not in this anymore. And you could see what commentary was saying. They were blaming all of this on his hip issue, on his back issue, which I still kind of think. Look, wrestlers are workers. They like to work. They like to lie. I feel like a herniated, we've talked about this before, but I just want to reiterate real quickly. A herniated disc healed within a month's time is bonkers to me. That doesn't quite make sense to me. And the fact that he's wrestling on it is insane. So, they promulgated this little story. I'm not sure it could be real. It could be an extension of the truth, but I don't think it's as, I can't shake this feeling that it's not entirely 100% accurate. Let's put it that way. So I feel like they created the story to give themselves an out in as to why Shota Umino might have a bad G1 this year. Now, why would you give Shota Umino a G1? I don't know. Like maybe there's stuff happening backstage. Maybe he's been doghoused for a reason. I don't know. I couldn't tell you because they, New Japan likes the Shota Umino. They like the kid. They want to push him. They obviously want him to be a star. Why wouldn't they make him a star in this G1? Well, there could be a bunch of reasons that we're not privy to, is what I'm trying to say. So I don't know what to tell you. But this match ruled. Zack Sabre Jr. defeated Gabe Kidd. Match of the tournament. Just an excellent pro wrestling match. And I'm sitting there and I got some good matches already under my belt, watching the rest of the G1 of night, what night is it? Night 13, right? 13. And I'm watching night 13 and I've already got some really good stuff under my belt. I'm like, all right, we're cooking, we're good. And over the past couple of nights, things have just been tremendous. I'm like, let's go. Let's get that G1 feeling pumping again. And Kid and Sabre gave me exactly that once again. We got Konosuke, we got Goto, we got all these people coming together, giving me the big matches. Phantasmo, Shingo, all giving me that G1 feeling, baby. This was absolutely phenomenal. An excellent match. And Gabe Kidd coming in here, he's the underdog in here. He's got 6 points. He's got a score. So he's here to mess up Zack Sabre Jr. And he's not wrestling. I remember, on commentary, Chris Charlton was saying, back in the day when they wrestled in WCPW for the first time, like, well, okay. Gabriel Kidd used, submissions and locks and whatnot, or something to that effect. And I'm like, okay. But Gabe wasn't doing any past tributes here to their old match. There weren't any throwbacks to that match. He wanted to beat the tar out of Zack. And he beats him so bad. That chest early on, like within the first minute of the match, Zack's chest was a bright red and it only got worse. It only got worse. And they go on the floor and there's a guillotine on the floor by Zack Sabre Jr. and it's reversed by Kid into a suplex. And Gabe is just pummeling Zack Sabre Jr. The chest is purple at this point. And to a point where it's like, Zack is fighting back and Gabe is like, okay, let's sit down and let's slap each other. Shibata style, and they do it. And it's tremendous. It's so good. German suplex by Zack, a Saito by Gabe, PK by Zack Sabre Jr., Brainbuster by Gabe. Finally, Gabe Kidd chops, but Zack Sabre Jr. catches the arm and stomps it a couple of times, so there's not as much gas in there. And there's, that's the opening that Zack Sabre Jr. was looking for, right? Gets it into a cross arm breaker, does an octopus, tombstone pile driver by Gabe Kidd, and an Emerald Flosion to a big reaction from the crowd. Crowd is super into this, by the way. They are into it. Gabe goes up top for the moonsault. It's caught by Zack Sabre Jr. into a lock. But Gabe Kidd hammers his way out. Zack driver by Zack Sabre Jr. after teasing the gotch. Pile driver. Tremendous. Rebound lariat by Gabe Kidd. But he gets trapped in a sleeper. And he cannot get out. And Zack Sabre Jr. Traps the arms with his heels. He's done. He is so done. And I'm looking at this, I'm like, brother, you are done. And he is done. Whew. Just a tremendous match full of grit. And the people saying, after they watched, what was the SummerSlam match? The Damian Priest and Gunther match. People, said, this is a New Japan match. I would like to direct their attention to this match. This is a New Japan match. This is where you get the fighting spirit thing and you get the chop battle, but you also get some extraordinary wrestling on top of that. You get some outstanding in-ring storytelling. You get everything packaged together. Just because people chop each other on the chest doesn't make it a New Japan match. This is a New Japan match. God, I'm fired up. I love this shit. When wrestling is great, there is nothing on planet Earth that is better. Nothing. Unfortunately, out of this outcome, well, fortunately for Zack Sabre Jr. anyway, he gets 2 points. So he's all the way at the top at 12. But Gabe Kidd is done. He is unfortunately eliminated. And we talked about this previously on other editions of the daily coverage. Star-making performance this G1 has been in the case of Gabe Kidd. I have so many people, many people in my haunts who just cannot stand Gabe Kidd. Like all throughout, last year up until right now, could not stand Gabe Kidd. To a degree, I'd say they were even disappointed that he was going to be in the G1. They're like, oh my God, he's going to do all this stuff. But these people have practically all of them. I don't want to say all of them. I would say an easy 90% of these people have flipped on Gabe Kidd. And they're like, yeah, this is great. He's showing me something. He's showing us good stuff. This guy decided to come out and lay it all out on the line and have extraordinary performances every time he was in the ring. Just good to great to excellent right now. And you should not be surprised to a degree where he's getting into the ring with Zack Sabre Jr. and they sit down when they're planning their match. They see what the main event is and they're like, okay, let's give the audience the main event they deserve. And Gabe Kidd is like, yeah. And since this is going to be my last real hurrah in the tournament, I'm going to go all in. I'm going to go balls to the wall on this one. God, what a tremendous match. I cannot recommend this enough. 4 3/4 stars. Go out of your way to stop everything except this review and go watch this match. Absolutely remarkable. As opposed to the main event, which was Shingo Takagi defeating Evil in the match I feared we were going to get. It's the match I feared we were going to get. Mentioned it yesterday, and unfortunately it was a match that was going to go either of two ways, right? It was either going to be Big Bruiser Evil, who was going to come out swinging, and we were going to get ourselves just a good old-fashioned Haas battle, just guys slugging at each other, big moves and so on. Or we were going to get the shenanigans and lots of them. And that's exactly what we got. So I've got practically nothing for you. 2 3/4 stars on this one. Even before the bell, the shenanigans are starting. So I'm like, oh shit, we are in trouble. We are in trouble. And, I don't know, there's hope spots, and then there's always this nonsense that happens, and Hiromu Takahashi interferes, and then they even do the Bushi spot again. You know what? I can't remember what show it was on, but they have Bushi run in on a previous show. They had Bushi wasn't it during the Cup? Was it during the Cup, the New Japan Cup? I honestly don't remember. But they had Bushi run in and he attacked the LIJ guy. I think it was in the match against Tsuji. Wasn't that in the match against Tsuji? And Bushi attacks and everyone's like, what the hell, Bushi? But it turns out it's Yoshinobu Kanemaru, and they do the exact same thing. And I'm like, that's not Bushi. What are we doing? Like, this is dumb, you know? Because then the real Bushi comes in, and then commentary are like, wait, what's going on? There's two Bushis. Oh my God. And look, there's, you know, just so much nonsense. You know, they do the bell ring thing. There's ref bumps and, you know, then LIJ, you know, they come in for the save at the very end. You know, Bushi and Hiromu, they get the best out of House of Torture to clear the path for Shingo to win. Which is fine, but I have no use for this. And I'm like, who cares? Like, honestly, who could possibly give a shit? And this is your main event. Thank God we had that previous match, because it just washes it all away. There's nothing to the main event. It's nothing. It's just complete, total invasion of House of Torture nonsense, and I have no interest in that. So nonetheless, Shingo Takagi gets an extra 2 points. He's up at 8, and Evil at 10. As far as my recommendations go, well, have you not been paying attention? No, seriously, Zack Sabre Jr. and Gabe Kidd is the match of the tournament. Like, please watch it. Please watch it. Let me know in the comments on YouTube or the comments on Spotify. I have that too. Let me know how much you like this match. I cannot see a wrestling fan. I cannot see a wrestling fan watching this match and crossing their arms after and saying, no, that's not good. You know, I can't. It's unfathomable to me. In fact, you can watch this entire night and skip the main event. This was a very good, once again, a great pro wrestling show. These shows have been hits since Korakuen, right? Or even a little before, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, what was on, where were we on night 10? Were we at Korakuen? We were at Korakuen, right? 10, 11. No, we weren't. Even starting as of night 10, these have all been fantastic. Just good stuff. Something clicked somewhere. Yeah. Maybe they've been listening to my reviews and they were like, hey, you know what? This Warren guy is right. We should all be a little more competitive with each other and, you know, try to outdo the other guy's last great match. That may be. You know, or at least that's what I'd like to think, that they watch my reviews. Anyway, let's go to the standings. So, Zack Sabre Jr. is at the top with 12 points. Zack Sabre Jr., if you're watching the video right now and you can see the standings, is in green, meaning that he is qualifying. He's going through. There is no way he can lose. Even if he loses on night 15 to, who's he facing again? Sonata. Even if he loses to Sonata, he still goes through. No sweat. He's fine. And the reason is simple for this. Evil and Tetsuya Naito follow up with 10 points apiece. So even if both Naito and Evil win, then you've got your 3 right there. Right? You've got your 3 that are ready to move on. Shingo Takagi is at 8 along with Great-O-Khan, Sonata, and Jake Lee. Gabe Kidd, Shota Umino at 6 points apiece, and Callum Newman at 4. Now, again, if you're seeing the video here, you're saying, well, Warren, there's a lot of guys that you eliminated. You put them in the gray box, which means that you've eliminated them. But Sonata and Jake Lee both have 8 points, but you haven't eliminated Great-O-Khan or Shingo Takagi, and they have 8 points as well. Oh, very astute observation of you. Yeah, I looked over the standings and boards and whatnot, and Jake Lee and Sonata are pretty much done, and there's no path for them to make it to the playoffs. Even if they win their matches on night 15, there's no way they're moving forward. Let me see if I can explain this clearly for you. So just to make sure. So Sonata is fighting Zack Sabre Jr. on night 15. So as we mentioned, even if Zack loses, he still qualifies. He's got 12 points. If he wins, he's going to be at 14. If he doesn't, well, he's going to be part of the 3 moving forward. Not a big deal. Sonata, though, is at 8 points. If he wins, he gets to 10. So yes, technically, he ties Evil and Tetsuya Naito. However, both Evil and Tetsuya Naito have the tiebreaker over Sonata. So even if he ties them, he's done, he's toast, he's not going for it. So even if he wins, he's done. He's done as of right now. Kind of the same situation with Jake Lee. Jake Lee is at 8 points. He is facing Shingo Takagi on night 15. So even if Jake Lee defeats Takagi and goes to 10 points, he's in the exact same situation as Sonata, where Evil and Naito have tiebreakers over him. So he is toast. However, when it comes to Shingo and Great-O-Khan, they're still technically alive. If Shingo defeats Jake Lee, he goes to 10 points, and the big deal here is that he has a tiebreaker over over Evil and Naito. So he wins tomorrow, he goes through. Well, tomorrow, excuse me, on the 10th, right? No, anyway, on the next night of Block A. We'll look at the schedule in a second. So that's something to keep your eye out for. Great-O-Khan also at 8 points, and it's the same type of situation as it's the same type of situation kinda, where he's at 8 points and he has the tiebreaker over Evil, and he's fighting Naito on night 10. So if Great-O-Khan defeats Tetsuya Naito on night 15, he goes through. He absolutely goes through, because he already has the tiebreaker over Evil, and then he'll have the tiebreaker over Naito, so he will go through. So that is a possibility. So that's why Shingo and Great-O-Khan are not eliminated. They stand a legitimate they stand a legitimate chance at moving forward here. And by the way, I vetted all of this stuff with Chris Samza over at sportofprowrestling.com. So, it's not just pure nonsense on my part. So that's the scenario we're looking at right now. And by chatting it over with Chris, this is the match order has not been released yet, but I think the main event is going to be Tetsuya Naito versus Great-O-Khan, followed by and then the undercard will be Shota Umino versus Evil, Shingo Takagi versus Jake Lee, Sonata versus Zack Sabre Jr., and Callum Newman versus Gabe Kidd in the opener. And I think by putting Shota Umino versus Evil before Great-O-Khan versus Naito, that will keep Evil at 10 points and will add more drama to the main event between Naito and Great-O-Khan. Because Evil will still be at 10 points, considering that he loses to Shota. Shota will be at 8 points. Evil will be at 10 still. And then Great-O-Khan will still have until the very bitter end, his entire destiny will be in his hands then. His entire destiny will be in his hands. So let's say that scenario happens where Great-O-Khan defeats Tetsuya Naito and Evil loses to Shota Umino. Great-O-Khan then would go through, and then that would mean that Evil would also go through because he holds the tiebreaker over Naito. So I don't think this scenario is happening. I unfortunately believe that what you see is what you get right now. Zack Sabre Jr., Evil, and Tetsuya Naito are all going through. Which is, to be honest, kind of boring. It's kind of dull. So look, we'll do the full analysis after we're done with block B on top of it, because I don't want to sit here and say, well, so much for the big rejuvenation. We're not done yet. We'll see what happens on the other side. The other side is so close right now with so many people. They can go so many different ways. But I will concur that it is disappointing that you had Jake Lee, Shota Umino. Well, Jake Lee's a new guy, but not what I meant to say was Gabe Kidd, Shota Umino in this block, and neither of them are moving forward. You got Jake Lee here, okay. New guy, maybe he should have gone forward. In my predictions, I thought he was going to do a lot better than this. But there's a very fair chance that we're going to get the same old. Like it's the same old guys again. Zack, Evil, Naito. And look, I picked Zack to win the whole thing, and I'm sticking by this. But you're kind of like, man, like you could at least throw Great Okan in this, right? You could still at least throw Great Okan into this, right? You could, even throwing Shingo into this would feel a little different. So it's a little disappointing on that end. On the other side, there's still so much potential for some surprise wins and whatnot. I mean, we'll have the conversation for Block B next time. But as it stands right now, like as exciting it is to see the scenarios play out, you look at the results and you're like, wow, this is exactly like the past few years, and it's the same guys in this year that we all felt would be the kick in the pants, right? But then again, here's one thing that we all should keep in mind that is very important to not forget, is that Gedo takes his time with this stuff, right? The new guys come in and he's gonna break them in. He takes his time. He's in no rush to book these main events, not these main events, to book these guys into contenders and winners and top guys. He's in no rush to do it. This is his pattern. But on the flip side, at least from the Western fan base, right? People were clamoring so loudly for new blood, new faces, push the young guys, that it was hard to ignore. I think this is why ultimately, and I'm pretty sure it's the same thing on the Japanese side, which ultimately led to New Japan this year doing the play-ins, right? And eliminating some of the usual dead weight that you have within the tournament, focusing it back to 2 blocks instead of spreading everything out over 4. There were a lot of advantages and a lot of signals that you were like, okay, this feels new, this is different, we're going go. And these are the people that are potentially going to be moving forward here. Look, Gabe and Shota are not moving forward. Cal Newman, of course, but we didn't expect that. This is where we're at right now. It's interesting. But I can understand I can understand some frustration. I myself am kind of like, oh, isn't this odd? Isn't this just a little off? So that's where we're at with the standings. Let's take a look at our next night of action, which is going to be this Saturday, August 10. So I will be back with more daily coverage there on Saturday from the Zebio Arena Sendai. We've got Bolton, Oleg, and Konosuke Takeshita in the opener. That should be a win for Takeshita, right? I'm suspecting Takeshita might finish strong, but won't be necessarily a factor because, like I said, he's doing the opener against Oleg, and then against Narita on the final night. That being said, Narita has somehow positioned himself to be really high in the conversation, so there may be some playoff implications there. Maybe, because if anyone out of all of these guys was the new guys was overbooked, then not in the traditional sense, but pushed too hard in this tournament. How about that? It's Ren Narita. Hiroki Goto will be facing El Phantasmo, and now everyone is excited for a Goto match. It's third from the top. I don't know what we should read into this. I don't know what should be gleaned into third from the top Hiroki Goto versus El Phantasmo. Because this could end up being a heartbreaking loss for Goto. If he wins here, he's still in the conversation, and the G1 this year just might stand for Goto, but Phantasmo, yeah, he's been in the pits, having solid matches, had a great match with Takeshita. He could end up being in the spoiler role, which we often see in guys in the G1 who will have, who will be in the bottom rung of the tournament, and then suddenly towards the end, they pick up these big twist wins. That's part of Gato's booking patterns as well. So I'm still holding. I am firmly on the let's go Goto train. Absolutely. Don't get me wrong. I'm holding my breath. I am holding my breath on this match here. Jeff Cobb versus Dave Finlay. I would expect Dave Finlay to score the win here because he is qualifying. I hope everyone has come to grips with that. Dave Finlay is moving forward. And the fact that Yota Tsuji is in the main event against Yuya Uemura leads me to believe that that old Yoda is going to score a couple of more points. He's going to win. He's probably going to win on the 10th. And then his final match is against Cobb. And we don't know the match order yet for the final nights of block action. So we'll see how this goes. But block action is coming to a close very, very shortly. We are so close to all of this wrapping up. And ergo the daily coverage as well, right? Because I've been thinking about it, and I'm like, I don't think I'll be able to do like a full, recap of the playoffs, within this context on a daily basis, right? So maybe what I'll do is I'll wrap up the G1 coverage on the Mr. Warren Hayes Show podcast. I think that's what I'll do. Like the playoffs and the finals, I'll wrap those up on the podcast. But as far as block action, we're going to keep this here, and then we'll finish. We'll get the full final thoughts as God intended on the Mr. Warren Hayes Show podcast. So I think that's probably the path I'm going to go. I'm still debating. I'm still wondering. It's an organic thing, and maybe I'll wake up. Maybe I'll wake up, and watch. And watch the first night of playoffs, and I'll be like, no, goddamn, we got to talk about this. What are we doing? Yeah, it could be. I'll see. I'll keep you posted. So there you go. That's what we're doing. So we'll be back on Saturday, then August 10, for night 14 of the G1. Thank you, everyone, for watching and tuning in. Hope you're enjoying this so far. Have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you Saturday.